I'll be back in 1 sec. Go ahead and go live.
Hello all, we are live on Midweek Geek, and this will be a stream where we deviate from the topic as much as we like because we are missing Saxius tonight. I'm going to... So I have with me Dark Knight of Hibernia. Hello, DK.
Hello.
And we
have
Elfbait.
returned.
Hello.
We have Elfbait. And Major's Musings has just wandered away from his screen for a moment.
No, I'm back.
Oh, you're back. You're back. Hello, Major's Music. We've been chatting before the stream anyway. And shall I open with a song?
As long as you don't get a copyright strike.
Right strike, I was about to say.
Shall we all sing Nelly the Elephant?
I've never heard this song before. Never heard the song.
Those in Discord will know. Those in Discord will know. Yes. Because at last week's stream was demonetized because Saxius mentioned the name of a former US president.
Yeah, how dare he mention Washington?
The last time we'll ever talk about Lincolning something.
Yes.
Whoa.
You mean you never had a thief called McKinley?
Maybe somebody was talking about their Johnson.
Well, it's all dick jokes, but
To be fair, with some presidents, I couldn't tell them from Adam. So
Adams.
We should Nixon all those jokes.
Oh God!
And no Saxius here to keep us on track. So we're
as we were saying before the stream,
where'd those rails go again?
It just showed us the ridiculousness of the current review process. So anyway, I'm going to say hello to everybody in chat before we kick off. El was here a while ago, but I think he's doing more OGL stuff, watching. Tong Pow's hanging around. Hello, Tong Pow. There's Halakar. There's Grumpy Old Slan. Here, McDonald's in the house, and the Fat Gamer. So hello, and there's Brian. Hello, Brian James. Brian, who joined our MERP game last Saturday. I know Elfbait was lurking in the background as we were playing.
Yeah, you guys are greatly entertaining in the background on my work days. And
Were we?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I mean, the thing about that MERP game is there's no real plot to it yet. It's just a case of I have a location, they wander around the location, and I've pre-rolled a number of random encounters, and we just go with the flow and see what happens and see what fits logically. And it seems to come together. So there will be plots developing, but I just want to see how they play the characters to begin with. I want to get a bit of experience and get used to this, the way it all works, and just get into the environment. Yeah, that's very, very pleasant. Hello, Squirrel Hermit, and hello, Duralumin. Duralumin's also in the MERP game. So nice to see you chaps here. Right, tonight's stream, you'll be glad to know, has nothing whatsoever to do with Wizards of the Coast and all the palaver that's going on. Leave that to everybody else. I've said my piece on that. Leave that to everybody else now. And we're going to talk about Thieves, which isn't just a classic song from late 80s, early 90s by Ministry. It is a character class before they became rogues.
Oh, Saxius.
Saxius.
Hello, Saxius. We have no order because you're gone. Bye. It's so much fun.
I think he just tried to buy us off. But
I think he is. This is Saxius bribery.
here's a tenner to keep on track.
Yes, I am lawful good. I do not condone what thieves do with their money by bribing officials. Thank you.
Yes, but if you're lawful, you should like to stay on track and be orderly.
Saxius is not lawful good.
No, it's not.
I have my doubts about DK because a lawful good wouldn't have to state.
See, I have a character flaw when I have low wisdom, so I have hard keeping track of things. But I'm principled, so.
Yeah, you keep your Palladium system away. This is a D&D channel.
How dare you? I use
can
law,
talk
neutrality,
Palladium
and
if you want.
chaos, sir.
If you know your Palladium, you're willing to bring it up. I just don't because I don't. Anyway, thank you very much, Saxius. Hello, Sausage Toes. Hello. Right.
Sausage toes.
I've got sausage fingers. So. Right, we're going to be talking about Thieves, and as they became known as rogues, and that Halakar's already brought up the main reason I hate the name rogue because of the spelling rouge. So annoying. Do people do it just to troll us nowadays, or do they genuinely believe it's
I
spelled?
don't know.
I do it every
I blame
so
it
often
mostly
as a
on
mistake.
typos. Honestly,
Yeah, I do it as a
mostly on typos.
Yeah, I just do it as a mistake every so often. It's like, wait, is it rouge or rogue? Like I'm slightly dyslexic a little bit, so I
I just
how do I
type
spell
too
it?
fast and flip the letters occasionally.
So
So
the thief. A little bit on that. We're discussing the history of the thief, and I do thank Sean for looking this up. I knew that the thief wasn't a class in the original books that first came out, but it first appeared in the Greyhawk supplement, I believe. Didn't we work that out as about 1975?
yes.
So it was
According
an
to the
additional
OD&D
class
books, yes.
in the old OD&D books. It wasn't one of the original first three classes were cleric, fighting
Fighter
man,
and magic user.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But then they brought in the thief, and the thief, in my opinion, filled a much needed niche because you're going into a dungeon. There are going to be traps in the dungeon. So having a character in the party who is a specialist at dealing with traps and locks and that sort of thing, with the added help of the sneaking around and backstabbing and all that sort of stuff, it's a boon, and it has its basis in the literature as well. Grey Mouser.
Yep.
Grey Mouser, everyone.
Yeah.
What was Grey Mouser?
He was a thief.
He was a thief.
A thief.
Yeah, he might have been a bit of a fighter thief, but he certainly had a lot of thiefy tendencies.
I mean, even in things quasi related to it, if you look at like Subutai from the Conan film, I would classify him as a fighter thief, the way he behaves.
And then what about he was called a burglar throughout the book? Bilbo Baggins.
Bilbo Baggins.
Yep, who was an expert at sneaking around and being quiet. All of and so the thief class, it comes from the literature, and for me, of course, I first played D&D in 1983, so I can't imagine a D&D game without that type of class being in it.
Delarium says Conan was a thief. Yeah, in one book he's called a thief, or he calls himself a thief, but I don't think he fits like the mechanics of a thief other than climbing.
You're too big to be a thief.
Thief, the
well, I mean, he did listen at
the occupation.
he did listen to doors, I think, in Tower of the Elephant, I think. So you could say he's a fighter thief, but even then, that's kind of a stretch.
One of my players always uses that phrase. Can I listen to the door, please? And I always reply, the door says nothing. I'm an annoying pedant.
I would want to listen at the door, and you're like, and you hear nothing.
Anybody can.
No, we're not talking about Watsy David.
Yeah.
Right, so that was the origin of the thief, and they have been a staple of the game ever since. And of course, they've had their name changed because it makes them seem a bit nicer. Which was that something to do with the old panic of satanicness? Maybe. But for me, the class is always centers around the thief skills. Well, I don't think of the class as rogue. I think of the class as thief because that's where I started. My first box set, of course, was the Red Box Mensa set, and there was the thief with D4 hit points. And at the time, I looked at those skills and thought they're appalling at low levels. I didn't realize at that time that they'd been heavily nerfed for the Mensa basic D&D compared to Moldvay because of the idea.
Really?
Yeah, they were. Well, Moldvay and Cook went from levels 1 to 14. whereas Mensa went from levels 1 to 36, and then Immortals. So it spread things out a little more gradually over the levels. So you look at your first level thief in Mensa Redbox, and you've got 10% chance to succeed on most of those abilities, and yet the party will expect you to at least still try them.
Because
So
it's only
good
like
luck.
once per level. It's like once per level of experience, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
if you
for some, yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, like I mean, like picking locks, and I think it's
Yeah.
disarming traps or something like that. But like,
Yeah.
it's weird that the climb is the one that's the astronomically high one. It's like for BX, it's like 87.
Arguably, though, it's the one which, when you've only got a D4 hit points, people think, oh, failing on a find traps, remove traps is the most dangerous. I would argue that failing on a climb walls is more dangerous when you've only got D4 hit points at first level.
If you fall 10 feet, that's every 10 feet. That's die 6 damage, man. That's not good. That's
even if
not
you
good.
trigger the trap, I mean, you're likely going to get a save anyways, so it's not going to be quite as bad.
And not all failed trap checks will trigger a trap. I always used to play what you have to fail it by a certain percentage. But yes, Sausage Toast is right. The Halfling class in Basic had hiding skills. They were very, very good at staying hidden.
But only in Wild. I've actually heard someone say that the Halfling was like
in Wild Spaces. Yes.
Yeah, it was like the proto ranger. Now this is someone who prefers BX and forgot that, I assume, because I don't think Basic came out before one of the supplements that had Ranger. I think it was again Greyhawk that introduced the Ranger. So I don't know whether BX or whichever supplement in OD&D that had it, but it's an interesting idea to think that the Ranger was inspired by the Halfling.
Mm-hmm. Well, Blaine says here he doesn't think the thieves need to be added. Every PC was a thief. Yes, that is true. Everyone was going into the dungeon to try and steal the loot. They were all sneaking. But the idea of the thief was to give a character that is specifically good at that sort of things. And I mean, I'm looking back. I've always played basic D&D and almost always played AD&D, Theatre of the Mind. So I've never used any flanking rules. Never used flanking rules. So, and yes,
I use flanking rules, but it's that's something we've had in for a long time, just as a house rule. But
well, I mean, it's definitely something worth talking about. Is just how, I mean, what the style of play will inform how good the thief is. I keep hearing people say thieves suck, and I that is not my experience. People want to be thieves, and people miss a thieves' presence. But I use grids and I use flanking and positioning and whatnot, and that makes all the difference, especially in AD&D.
Well, one question to ask before we get into how things changed. Obviously, the backstab is a big part of the thief repertoire, and that's and a player looking at the class will look at that big shiny backstab and the big shiny multiplier and think, yes. Now, there are lots of interpretations I've seen as to when a thief should be allowed to have a backstab. Some people have said, oh, they must have surprise. Some people have said, oh, the enemy just needs to
be unaware.
It has to be unaware. For me, I do allow, because I'm playing mostly Theatre of the Mind, I do allow a thief to, as long as the combat is quite frenetic. If a player says to me, while the fighters, for example, have got the ogre occupied, is there anything in the room that I can sort of slip behind and sort of lurk and wait for a moment that I can spring out? And if they're going to forego a round or two of attacks to do that, I will say, go for it. Because the mere action of stepping out of a backstab attempt and attacking immediately makes them a target. So they are putting themselves in melee with a poor armor class and poor hit points just to have that one shot at a backstab. And I will give a thief player that chance, because that is one of the main parts of the class for me. That whole sneaking around and lurking and waiting for that moment. But that might be because I like assassins, which we'll come on to later.
Well, but that's a reasonable way to do it, especially with theater of the mind, because you don't have the grid to give you the exact positioning. And I mean, people seem to forget. Like I've played games where you've got 3 fighters on the target that the thief wants to backstab, and he's like, "No, he sees you." So what do you mean he sees me? He's got 3 guys swinging swords in his face.
Precisely.
Right. So that is enough of a distraction.
I would say I think. I would agree that, like you're saying, he sees you. I would say the better way to say it is he is aware of the presence of hostile opponents. So he's on alert. So someone basically trying to jump up behind them and stab them in the neck, they would be more perceptive anyway because their adrenaline is hopped up.
A nice unprotected back is a nice unprotected back.
And when you're occupied with 3 other combatants, your ability to react defensively to a 4th is going to be highly reduced.
I think the case is the thing to do is to play it by ear a little bit in terms of what are they fighting, what's the environment like, how many people are they fighting, are there lots of little hidey holes, is there lots of running around in the room? If everyone's just sort of standing there and swinging, maybe. But
the other thing to consider is that the thief is supposed to have all the thief's skills are kind of supposed to represent sort of above and beyond the ordinary that folks can.
Yeah.
That's why the percentages being low are not so hard to take because everybody can climb stuff. The thief can climb things that are nigh unclimbable.
Yeah, like sheer 900 foot. But like the point that I'm trying to play because I'm going down an experiment where I'm going to try and follow. I'm going to try and follow like with Osric and Swords and Wizardry the rules, not just as written, but with the intent behind what Gygax was trying to do. Because I want to try and force myself to not tinker with stuff anymore. And then once I've learned the basics, D&D joke, I will be able to tinker with it because it's all adage, once you know the rules, you can bend them and break them.
Well, here's where, in the case of Geek's example of the theater of the mind, defaulting to the rules will give you your answer. Like I use surprise metrics liberally. Right. So your thief goes in, he hides, he makes his roll. Now, let's say my OSE game, because I do surprise different for OSE and AD&D because they have different systems. But for OSE, it's like, okay, your thief goes, theater of the mind, we don't have grids. Your thief goes, you attempt to hide. The DM has told you there's something to hide behind. So you make your roll. If your roll succeeds, then you've got your surprise because your first level thief has a 10% chance to hide, But if your roll fails, you still get a surprise roll. And then that's a completely fair way to determine that. So then the player isn't thinking, oh, well, I have a 10% chance. There's no point. Then you have a 10% chance of guaranteeing that surprise. And then even if that fails, I still get a normal chance to surprise if you've done the metric, if you've, stayed hidden for a round or two. And so it's always good to look at the rules to give the thief a fair shake. As opposed to arbitrarily saying, no, he notices you, right?
I wouldn't be averse to using that sort of approach, but I would certainly modify that surprise roll based on what the thief character is doing and what the environment is. I mean, certainly playing basic D&D where there isn't the extra segments issue in surprise.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a particularly dark room, a particularly busy room with lots going on and they were otherwise engaged, you could give the thief, for example, a 4 in 6 chance of pulling it off.
Absolutely.
It's that sort of
situation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was even thinking of because I was watching Conan. I gotta go back to the Conan film because I just recently watched it and I really enjoyed it. But there's the scene in the room where all the people are having the happy fun time while eating human flesh and soup. And so Subutai is sneaking around and nobody notices him, but the Panther does. So I was actually experimenting with what if you had different gradients of like basically you may have succeeded, but did you succeed within the range of the Panther?
Yeah.
So like the Panther might have a higher chance of detection. Like say, so the threshold will be you'd have to beat a 65 for the humans or 75 for the panther.
Yeah,
But
but
if you
also
get,
monsters
like,
about a scene like that too, where the DM may just rule that everybody's just too occupied to even notice. Yeah.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. But I'm saying the panther was elevated and looking from the room of also doom.
Well, it's also a cat.
It's a cat. Great. It's even in the monster manual. Most cats are only surprised on a 1, like lions and cougars.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't roll over in my bed without my cat in the living room raising her head and making noise.
I mean, even my dog as well, I suppose. Yeah. You
can't take a step towards the dog's food cupboard without her coming running into the kitchen.
I mean, that's what dogs. Why we domesticated them, because they had
a snack pack anywhere within a mile, and your dog is there.
Only a D4, which is pretty tough to do with AD&D. Yeah. Ian McDonald does say, like, with the whole the disparity with the D4 D6 health. Like, I mean, yeah, that is fair. And I think didn't the assassins get the ability to use shields, unlike the thief?
We will come to.
We'll get to that later. Yeah,
well,
that's fair.
I specifically want to try and move through the editions. So,
we're on first edition. Okay.
I think the statement that Beckme Thieves really were badly nerfed was is pretty obvious, because they had that D4 hit points, which a holdover from Moldvay, but at least in Moldvay they had a better chance of doing their thing. In Beckme, those percentages were absolutely abysmal at low levels. But of course, moving across to AD&D, in AD&D, the thief was, certainly in the case of demi-humans, a really good option, because they got bonuses, demi-human bonuses.
And their ability, like the dwarf being able to see certain slanting doors and stuff. Yeah, it's great.
And there was the multi-classing option, the classic fighter thief.
A
lightly armed, capable warrior with thief skills, or if you wanted to go the mage.
And those saves versus
the elven mage thief is another for the clever player. It's a really, really good example.
And we all know the beloved fighter magic user thief.
I mean, someone like Shield of Eyes actually questioned whether or not the magic user thief is actually a good option, since at high levels you can just cast invisibility and just be like, it's.
Yeah, but imagine casting invisibility and then doing a backstab.
Assuming you're able to learn invisibility.
That is true. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That is very true.
You're a thief. You can read scrolls even without being a wizard, so your chances are even greater.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting. Yeah, there's the Fafford. There's the Grey Mauser. Always with those magic scrolls.
Yeah, but of course, also in AD&D, they got that boost up to a D6 for hit points. They got slightly better percentages. They got a boost to their thief abilities due to dexterity. And most thieves will have put their best stat in dexterity, rolling 4d6 rearrange. That's what you most often did when you played a thief. And so thieves in AD&D were that little bit stronger. Plus, there was that slight. I guess everyone's familiar with the training rules in AD&D and the slight oddity that you have to
behave a certain way. Yeah, you have to follow your class niche. Yeah.
Well, it was the fact that you need 1,500 gold pieces to train to level 2, and if you're playing 1-for-1 GP for XP, Thief only needed 1,251 XP for the second level. So
that's assuming you're paying, right? Like if you're trading magic items, you would easily get that, or if you're trading for favors. Yeah, that's what most of my thieves do. They'll trade for favors. Like, you pay for my training, I'll do this job for you.
Yeah, of course. That's but it's just that those standard rules where you needed more GP, you almost certainly playing by those standard rules, unless you've got a DM who was going to give that sort of trade through favors and magic items and whatever. You needed more GP than XP for level 2, but it's just one of those little oddities. That pops up. But of course, thieves advanced very, very quickly through the XP, and that was by design. You'd commonly have a second level thief in a party with a first level fighter. And now that second level thief's got more hit points than the frontline fighter. Okay,
that's fine because he's going to lose half of them to traps.
Oh yeah, that's
true,
the other side of it. The fight. Yeah, you can have all the hit points in the world that you want, but if everyone can hit you, like, I mean,
well, it's not even just the traps. It's the fact that how often do you see the rest of the party just, all right, go down the hallway, thief, check for traps, which increases the chance not only that the thief is going to be the only one hit by the trap, but also if there are monsters or anything laying in ambush, the thief's going to suddenly find himself alone.
Something I want to point out for AD&D, specifically in AD&D, that's important because it's not stated outright, especially in the thief class, is thieves' ability to wear, the fact that they can only wear leather armor and usually have a high dex actually works in their favor a lot, because you remember, if you're wearing anything other than leather armor, your dexterity modifier for recovering from surprise goes away. You don't get your reaction adjustment. Yeah. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, so a thief, let's say with a 17 dex, can negate 2 segments of surprise and get out of dodge before everybody else does, and they keep their mobility.
That's nuts.
Whereas the fighter in his plate mail is he can't react to surprise, and he's slow. He's only moving at half the speed of a thief.
Of course, yeah. If you're running away, then the thief's going to get away first, isn't he?
Yeah, and the only person with better mobility than the thief is, of course, the monk, who is basically a thief subclass. They don't say that outright, but it's essentially an alternate thief in AD&D specifically.
I don't know. Ian says in BX they probably had still had less than the fighter. Even yes, they put at second level, depending on constitution bonuses, is 2d4. The average on 2d4 is 5. The average on 1d8 is 4.5.
Is 4.5. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's probability wise, and if we're talking about like strictly BX, the fact that because I don't know if isn't it only fighters who benefit from high constitution?
No. In BX, no.
No. I mean in AD&D, in AD&D is what I'm saying.
In AD&D, after 16, yes, after 16, only fighters can get that bonus.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
So up to 16, everybody's bonus is the same.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. But in BX, it's like they don't have that kind of class restriction on stats like AD&D does.
No, and they can use any weapons too in BX, so you get your thief backstabbing with that 2-handed sword.
Yeah. I know it's that they could use any one-handed weapon that a fighter could use, and certain.
I'm
pulling out Osric. I'm pulling out Osric. One sec.
I've got the AD.
Osric is different. Osric has a list of WPs, but in BX and Old School Essentials, they just have a list of weapons they can use, and a thief can use any weapon.
Clubs, daggers, darts, oil slings, single-handed swords, except for bastard swords. That's what the restriction is on.
In AD&D, yes.
I've got the AD&D one here. Club, daggers, dart, sling, sword, short sword, broadsword, or long sword.
Yeah, so basically it just says any sword except a bastard sword. So
yeah. And did you notice there? No bows.
Yep.
No bows. But
they didn't add bows until Unearthed Arcana.
Yeah, I've just literally pulled one thing.
You gotta be quicker on the draw, John.
I was reaching for it. You could probably see me reaching for it.
Use your cunning action for your fast hands. Oh wait.
We're getting to fifth. We're getting to 5th edition later. We're getting to that one.
Something else that's important for Thieves, while John's looking that up, is
I've already got the page. I know my way around these books. Yeah.
The segment system really benefits Thieves when you're using surprise, because in AD&D, if you're going melee, one segment of action is 1 full round's worth of actions. So if the thief is already ready for a backstab and gets multiple segments of surprise, and it depends on how you rule it. I rule it that every segment is a backstab if you're if you qualify. So that can really, really add up nicely. We have thieves getting behind somebody, and it's like shanking a guy 5 times before he's able to react. And I think that's important to play it that way, because if the backstab doesn't kill the opponent, he turns around, that thief's not in good shape to fight.
No.
Say to Kieran, who's regarded, I've heard of a few people with delays on the deletion requests. I've never had a subscription for that, so I don't know. My friends have got subscriptions. I don't know what they're doing with them, but I have heard of delays, unfortunately.
Delays on what subscription?
D&D. That's on
Beyond.
the D&D.
Oh, right. I heard something about that. I just didn't know how true it was or not.
They hid the unsubscribe button and
yeah. Oh, wow.
You guys
you have to submit and everything.
You guys want to unsubscribe? Oh well, that's not screwy and unethical or anything. Anyway,
get back to the topic.
That's not our topic anyway today.
Yes.
I mean, we are talking about
glasses if I'm going to be sexist. So,
I mean, we are talking about Thieves, so it is loosely on topic. Anyway, in Unearthed Arcana, Thieves gain the opportunity to use short bows, caltrops, clubs, hand crossbows, daggers, darts, garrots, knives, saps, slings, broadswords, falchions, long swords, and short swords. So that's a bigger range, and adds in bows. But a key here for the thief was that it now officially permitted studded leather, padded leather, and elfin chainmail armor.
Right.
They could actually use elven chain.
There were penalties to their thieving skills, but that is an official permission to use better armor as well. So Unearthed Arcana made the thief a more robust
fighter than
the elven chain part was just clarification for rules sake, because I always seem to recall reading the specifics of elven chain, making it pretty clear that a thief could wear it no problem anyways, or even a ranger or something like that. Because it's kind of implied there that if the wood elves are hiding in the trees wearing elven chain,
yeah, but they're elves, man.
Elfin chain, yes, elfin chain. I mean, let's elfin chain. As in, properly made.
Just call
by
it
the elves.
Just call it elven. Dear God,
elfin. Right.
It's like elfin, like the fin.
It was, as I've already said, it was one of the classes that demi-humans could mostly advance all the way, unlimited. Not all of them, but
Half-Orc was the only one who was capped.
Yeah.
You've got all this memorized, haven't you?
It's my main system, so I know a lot off the top of my head.
But
listening to Sean talk about AD&D, I'm constantly reminded how much of that game system I didn't actually use when I played it.
That's one of my things with AD&D is like in reading it, I realized years ago that to really make it sing, you've got to use all the nuances, all the little fiddly bits.
Yeah.
I so many people I know just I don't use that, I don't use this. It's like, well, then why are you playing AD&D?
I don't think we were even aware of it back when we played, because I remember a few years back, in one of the later edition times, my buddy and I were looking through my old player's handbook, and I'm like, "Do you remember this?" He's like, "No."
Oh yeah, there's so much. I'm still finding new things.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing. It's like I don't think we actually ever. There's a lot of it I just didn't know. I don't know if I just glanced over it and I was just too eager to just dive into the game and start playing, or what.
DK Saxius is on your case.
Saxius, stop it. Bad. Go back and play your game.
Right. So now we move on to second edition.
And the Lady of Pain. Lady of Pain turned them into rules.
The biggest difference between Thieves in first edition and second edition was that in the second edition, you now had a pool of skill, of thief skill points that you could put into the various skills. So you could specialize more in picking pockets. You could specialize more in creeping around, being sneaky.
I thought that was third edition that did that intelligence stuff. Oh God.
No, nothing. It was nothing to do with intelligence. Nothing to do with
intelligence. It's all percentage points. You assign the percentage points instead of chart.
You had base levels that were very, very similar to Beckme sort of levels.
Then did you get points every? Did you get like a pool of points every time you leveled up, or what?
Yes.
You start with 60 discretionary points, and you go up 30 discretionary points per level.
That's so little.
It's not a lot. It's but you can still. I mean, you can have a first level thief with like 40% chance in pickpockets, for example, but about 5 or 10% chance in most other things.
And everything else.
It didn't make thieves much more powerful but it allowed you to produce sort of a specialist. So you had that chance of making that dwarven thief trapsmith, for example, locksmith.
I will say Hungar said he got out today. Hello, Hungar.
Excellent, Hungar. Excellent. Out of how is it long-term freedom now, Hungar, or are you expected to go back?
Yeah. How are you feeling, man?
Hopefully it's long-term.
Hopefully it's permanent. I hope he stays out.
Well, yeah.
But Michael Stronghold, there are Maliki, there are 2 kleptomaniac. No, it's sausage toes. 2 kleptomaniac lady thieves, I think, in the
B3.
Palace of Silver Princess. Yeah.
B3, yes.
He feels good.
Yes.
That's great to hear, Halakar. That's very good to hear. Or not Halakar, Hungar. My bad. I'm an idiot.
We're all getting our names mixed up.
And those 2 thieves were called Duchess and Candela. And yes, the first time I ever played D&D, I got to them. Actually, no, it was my second character that got them. My first character died to Travis. It was the first module I ever played. My second character got as far as Duchess and Candela, and they robbed me blind.
I assume you had. I suppose your character had his pants down at the time.
No, I was 12. I didn't think like that.
Sure.
Genuinely, I didn't think like that. I had no interest in anything like that when I was 12.
Just keep digging that hole, Geek. Just keep digging that hole.
I wanted to roll these dice.
Are you trying to get Geek demonetized there, DK? Come on.
We're past the 30 minutes.
No, I would never do that.
Right. On the theme of being demonetized, hiding shadows can be used to hide in bush. There we go.
You just referenced another former president there.
Yes.
Boom.
You might find some
there. Say, I would say the hiding in the bush or in wooded terrain would be more of a ranger thing, not a thief thing. But ho hum.
It comes.
I don't know, but the last time I was out in the woods in the bushes, they cast shadows, so I think he's okay. I think.
So
I know. I don't know if thief skills apply in wooded terrain or not. I don't know.
They have.
I thought I heard.
They don't have any kind of caveats to them. Hiding shadows is shadow.
Shadow's a shadow. Yeah.
If you're in a crowded place, and if there's a giant standing around, you could just move into his shadow.
And the other thing that came in the second edition, back on topic, is one of the there were a lot of brown and blue and green splat books, and that is one of the better ones.
Yeah, I want to get some of those second edition stuff.
Those are I want to get before they started going nuts. But
I wanted to get the Greek green supplements so badly. I have a PDF. It's really good.
So in this, you had more.
The Celtic ones are good too.
I have all of them.
You could make yourself like a swashbuckler, a thug, a swindler, a smuggler, and none of these were overpowered in this book. This is before they got silly. They were just very nicely flavorful. I think the bounty hunter was quite tough, but you had to have higher stats to qualify for a bounty hunter than some of the others. And I thought that, and didn't that bring back the assassin? I think this book.
No, yes, I don't think no.
Yes, it did.
Really? I thought they completely abolished it. Seriously?
Not as a class, as a kit. So you got a couple of perks. But...
Right. Probably Lorraine didn't notice that at the time. I don't think she would have allowed it.
They did bring back the assassin in the Scarlet Brotherhood second ed supplement.
Oh,
the assassin and the monk were given a second edition upgrade.
It's Greyhawk.
Because how I heard it was like they just people just use the assassin from AD&D 1E anyway. So
why not?
They're almost like the two systems are pretty similar enough anyway, so it's not that big of a deal.
When mentioning Unearthed Arcana, I did forget to mention the Thief Acrobat. I know, Sean, you've got an Acrobat in your OSE game.
OSE game, yeah. The Thief Acrobat in AD&D is a little different. I do allow them. Nobody's made one yet.
May I ask, what is the difference? Because I haven't read Unearthed Arcana yet, I've only seen like OSR type and only scanned it the acrobat. What is the difference between a thief acrobat and a bug standard thief?
They get they get tumbling abilities.
Basically, throw in some monk abilities onto the thief, kind of, just in the like that more acrobatic elements. Yeah, but they get like tightrope walking and tumbling, and I actually the only acrobat thief I ever played was the Unearthed Arcana one, and that was in a Waterdeep campaign where I decided I was going to make the Batman of Waterdeep.
Okay, Malaki, hardy. So
right.
So
that was a fun campaign. It was a solo game, and I was running around that city being a Batman with.
I will say, Grumpy Old Sense is like the benefit pole vault, walk rope, and tumble. So
hold on, DK. I'm going to come to that. I have the page open here. And I'm going to read. I'm going to read a little bit out of it.
Any of my books, Sandy, because I just put them on shelves.
So, for the benefit of our youngest panelist, any thief character with a minimum strength of 15 and a minimum dexterity of 16 may decide to forego normal thievery after rising through the 5th level of experience to become a split class specialist thief acrobat. The thief then leaves off all practices which increase his or her manual dexterity and begins a regime of physical exercise in order to build coordination, muscle tone, and balance. Thus, up to level, basically, pickpockets, find traps, open locks, remove traps, and end at 5th level. They never gain the ability to read magic. And then they start getting various tumbling skills. They don't lose those previous skills, but they just don't improve them.
Freeze. Yeah.
The neat thing is if you're playing, is that with the acrobat going in there, it became kind of cool to run sort of thief guildy things where you'd have thief teams where you'd have. The second story man would be the acrobat with all of the extra tumbling and all of that, whereas
the assassin. I imagine like
you could make a party of rogues and be out there and have you got the assassin who's the hitman, you got the thief who's the actual burglar thief, and then the acrobat who's the one who gets up into the high tower and
right.
So I was literally about to say.
I was literally about to say this sounds like a great class for like city crawls. But this sounds kind of bad for dungeon delving.
Nope. It was great in dungeons. There's a chasm.
Really?
Okay. I have a tightrope.
There's a little combat ability that they have that's interesting. It's not well laid out. I know how I've ruled it, but they get a percentage, an evasion percentage. And if you have initiative, that's essentially it acts as magic resistance. So if an attack hits you, you get to roll your evasion percentage and just avoid all the damage.
Yeah, that's why my acrobat. That's why the acrobat made a great class.
Wasn't a very high percent, but
it goes up. But it was a freebie, right? And again, depending on how you rule it, like some DMs might rule, we have to use the evasion. As far as I'm concerned, it's like no, if you have initiative, it's automatic. Yeah, it's passive.
Yeah, I would say it's just passive. Like I would rule that. Yeah, but like that, I don't know how I feel about how they lose out on all their thief stuff and the ability to use scrolls. Like that's brutal.
Well, there's got to be a trade-off.
Yeah, it is a trade. They keep them at the levels that they had them at level 5.
They actually become really useful in dungeons. Kind of to your earlier comment. I mean, because they have all of that increased mobility, which in a dungeon, is really useful.
And you reduce your falling damage, and so.
And I think that evasion could even be ruled to apply versus some things like traps and stuff too. If with a DM,
the biggest issue that always held people back, in my opinion, from making a thief acrobat was simply that strength requirement of 15 strength. I rarely saw anyone make a pure thief with a strength of 15.
But if you think about it, it's a good incentive to maybe not go from thief and then take level and then go into like become a thief fighter, or instead you can like, okay, I've got a strength to be a fighter, but instead of being a fighter, I'm going to become an acrobat.
Yeah, it's kind of like a dual class. You plan for it.
Yeah,
right.
Also, and kind of like what they did with Paladin in the Unearthed Arcana, where Cavaliers then become Paladins, kind of a thing.
By the way, Omanels asked about the Oriental Adventures, ninjas and well, I'm going to be really pedantic here. Ninja and shinobi are basically the same thing. It's just it's weird the way the ninja and shinobi thing. I'm not even going to get into it.
Referring more to the art of being a ninja, being shinobi.
Yeah, so they were character class options in Oriental Adventures.
Well, they only had the ninja class in there.
I currently don't have a copy of Oriental Adventures. So
Oriental Adventures.
I can't touch on it.
The ninja was a hard one to actually have and DM in a campaign. I ruined my friend's ninja character before we even started playing, because the whole point of the ninja was nobody could know you were a ninja. And if you were found out that you were a ninja, it was a massive honor bust, right, to your character. And then that game, losing all honor could tank your character.
Potentially.
The ninja was also a multi-class.
Yep.
So,
oh, really?
You added the ninja class on to whatever other class you were.
Yeah. And so I spoiled that his character was a ninja, and he got all kind of PO'd at me and stuff like that, because I let slip. I'm like, oh, yeah, and you're ninja. Oh, crap. So
yeah, it's bound to happen. Let's see here.
It was just a character that had a lot of character class because it was supposed to be so secretive. And I mean, I guess he could have argued that it was the DM saying it, so it really didn't count. But he was trying to do the secret squirrel stuff and not let the rest of the party know he was a ninja because he was really wanting to play it.
Question though, just as a side thing, question. Michael Stronghold says ninjas are OP. They automatically got poison use. Didn't assassins also get poison use automatically?
Well, you could use them, but even at first level,
you couldn't make them. Oh, you couldn't make them.
Or anything. You had to get to a point where you paid the assassin skill to give you that advanced training, but you didn't get it as a default.
Right. Okay. I just
you had to get hold of the poison as well.
And get poison, hold of it. Yeah.
Why? Someone else asking about why do bards get thief training?
I've just clicked on that one. Obviously,
right.
We're probably all familiar with the way the bard worked in
first.
Yes. Yeah.
You had to be a
prestige class, for lack of a better term.
Thief. Then you underwent druidic training when you actually became a bard. I like the first edition bard. It's not as overpowered as people make out, because
it's a path. It's a slog. You don't just get it right away.
It is the best iteration of the bard, because specifically because it's so difficult to qualify for. And it's not even all that powerful.
In second edition, the bard had some basic thief skills. Now, bear this in mind. To become a bard in second edition, you had to have a charisma of 15. So you were unlikely to have as good a dexterity as a pure thief. Also,
didn't they also get thief skills in first edition? I thought.
Yeah, because you had to be a thief for at least 6 levels,
right,
in first edition to become a bard.
Yeah.
But bards do get basic thieving abilities in second edition. But their starting percentages are only climb walls 50%, hear noise 20%, pickpockets 10%, and read languages 5%. They don't
get
20 descriptors.
They don't get any of the other skills, and they don't get as many points to add to their skills as true thieves do.
Right. So that's because they have magic and stuff.
Oh yeah. But they're there as a backup, but that's only really in terms of climbing and those other sort of detection skills. How many bards at low levels are going to run around picking pockets with such a poor chance of doing it, unless they could use their spells to enhance the opportunity? But that was the idea. The bard was not a particularly powerful class in second edition. It was a sort of class that you had to play very intelligently. Blaine's right here. The second edition one feels like a general magic user thief with a lute. that was a bit how they felt. They were pretty weak in combat.
Yeah.
So we move on to the next edition. And
third edition.
Third edition is where the thief really lost its niche. It became more of a skill monkey type character.
I would actually argue that was kind of when that's like in third edition. I think it was when they really started to go ham on the backstab stuff as well.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot easier to qualify, and you could do it way more often, rather than just once per combat. I think.
Yeah. And I'm not going to dwell on third edition because I've never played a thief in third edition, apart from Neverwinter Nights, which isn't. It's a computer game.
Yeah.
I will say that I never played a thief in third edition. I played lots of rogues, but I never played them as thieves.
Of course,
I always played them as the skill monkey. I want to be the guy who just does stuff because I like skill. It's almost like I want to play a skill-based system, and I'm going to play D&D. So I don't think I'm going to have.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest. That's kind of the biggest tragedy of the loss of the niche, because when you lose a niche, you kind of lose your flavor identity. When you're just the skill monkey, it's like, well, everyone has skills. I'm just better at it than everyone else. That's not like.
And that's true. That's where that erosion really starts to. I mean, technically, we start to see it in second edition, but not too.
Yeah, but not to that. And because to compensate that's why they upped the backstab stuff to keep them up with the fighter. So now the fighter is starting to suffer from this. So
you also had to keep it up there because monsters and stuff were starting to get
bloated.
Yeah, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and all their abilities, the spell-like abilities and stuff. It was nuts. I've scanned through the third because I bought for €200 a bunch of the third edition books. I'm gonna sell them at this point because I'll never use them. But it's like I'm scanning through these books.
They're great to mine for ideas.
Oh yeah. I'll sell this. I might keep the setting books and some of the monster stuff, but the class stuff, I'm just gonna get rid of it because the stuff that they had in third edition, all the monstrous races you could play, it's like my brain was melting reading it. I was like, how did you do this to yourselves? I don't get it. Though this was 3.5 rather than third, but same thing.
Oh, they're the same thing.
Going back to bards, Hungar's right here. Old school bards were good at a lot of things, but not great at anything. They were great to have in a party if you had a small party and you needed that utility.
They were definitely good as a face man. If your DM was using charisma and reaction adjustments liberally, your bard was going to become your face man.
Not as good as the paladin, but
bards.
The paladins were way better at it. Way better.
Yeah, but paladins don't always get great reactions from the more scoundrel type, roguish types.
Yeah, bards aren't
hampered
by that lawful goodness necessarily.
Yeah, well, if they're neutral good.
And that is assuming you even had a paladin or a druid.
That is true. So. That's fair. That is true. But yeah.
We just let the half-orc fighter do all the negotiations with his fists.
We're skipping through third edition because we always lose people in chat when we talk about third, fourth, and fifth edition. So we're going to go quickly through these. Fourth edition. Did anyone ever play a thief in fourth edition?
I
never even played fourth edition.
I never played fourth edition. Period.
I played one session. I played one session of fourth edition.
Why would we play fourth edition? We're talking about playing D&D.
Exactly. But then
I'm sorry, Elf. I had to.
We'll
get one little dig in.
The fifth edition rogue.
I have no love for the system, but
I know. I'm just being mean. I'm just being mean. But
the fifth edition, of course, is now very much entrenched as a rogue. And it's all about that sneak attack damage and skill monkey type stuff. I don't I quite like their assassin and swashbuckler options, and the arcane trickster is the classic gnome thief illusionist. But to me, it all hinges too much on the old sneak attack and doing damage in combat.
I will just say, to summarize the rogue's career in 5th edition, do I have advantage?
Basically, yes.
Do I have advantage? Yeah.
Is he near an ally?
Yeah. I mean, what's even worse is the swashbuckler. I like swashbuckler as a player, but Well, kind of. If you actually look at it, the swashbuckler makes sneak attacking even easier because they can, if they're alone around another target, they can sneak attack.
They can act as their own ally.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
They can do this from 3rd level. It's insane. So if you go fighter, like say Battlemaster fighter with swashbuckler, you can just. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't even want to talk about it. It's you can just buzzsaw through everything. It's
yeah. It's all about dealing that massive damage in combat and getting out of the way, and it does become a bit repetitive. I mean, I'll always give the thief class its dues. It's a class that has a lot of flavor going with it, a lot of role play opportunities, but I just don't find them interesting. In fact, to be honest, I don't find the as written 5th edition combat to be particularly interesting. So
it can be if you keep it short, but if it just keeps
General Nutt said DK point of contention. You're talking about AD&D, not D&D. None of that was D&D. I don't know what you're in reference to, General Nutt.
I think is General Nutt a little bit behind on the on the stream.
He's commenting on the comment about 4th edition.
And
right,
D&D. Right. I mean, to be fair, I go further and say everything past 1st edition stopped being D&D, but maybe that's a bit too harsh.
It's all D&D. Sorry, because D&D right out the gate stopped being D&D.
Yeah, I guess if you want to argue, anything after 1974 was not D&D anymore. It was.
Well, I mean, I'm a hardline OD&D'er. I'm a hardline OD&D'er, but I'm just being nice to every edition that Gygax worked on. You know.
Yeah, except for even Gygax didn't play D&D as it was printed. So I mean.
Yes. Yeah.
So nobody was really playing D&D if you want to use that criteria.
That's true.
Unless you're playing Gygax's table.
That's kind of what my contention, but I would say the rules that Gygax worked on is kind of the most broad objective standard I could apply, because after 1st edition he didn't really work on D&D sense. So
I mean, for me my optimal version of D&D, 1st edition AD&D with bits of basics scattered in. The 2nd edition is enough like that to still feel like the game was when I was a kid. So and Sausage Toes is right there. We all had house rules. Yeah, of course.
I read anyway for 30 years, and it was like I loved it for what it was, but ultimately I reverted back to 1st ed. Well, I should qualify that. I didn't play much 1st ed as a kid. I went from basic to other systems. I had the 1st ed books, but they were over my head because I was a dumb kid. And then I got into 2nd ed, but then I rediscovered 1st ed and just kind of went retro.
You fell in love with it?
Yeah, when I parsed the rules, I was like, oh, this is a really good system once you figure out the gobbledygook. So,
but back to 5e.
Right, so we've glossed over mechanics of later editions, but we have sort of charted the general path of the thief, how it gained a niche and then lost the niche and changed over time. So I'm going to go with a couple of things that I mentioned in chat. I was going to come to these sort of things later, but I think we possibly mention it now. I saw the Thieves Guild stuff, but never had it. Did anyone ever have a dabble with that?
No,
I've never heard of this. I have no idea what it is.
No, I never. I mean, certainly a game in which everybody's a thief. It could be a lot of fun. In fact, in Saxius's Shadow of the Demon Lord game, which we are playing again tomorrow night, we're all playing the parts of goblins, and it looks like we've got 2 thief types because we gained our 1st level classes last week, and so we're basically sneaky little goblins.
It's a
popular
concept. You have Blades in the Dark now. Modern games, like Blades in the Dark are all about heists and thieving and stuff like that. So
I'll tell you why I would probably never play a game like that is because if I was going to do that, I'd just do it within D&D, just within the framework of the game I already play. I don't need to learn a whole new game.
Yeah, and again, Blades in the Dark. Playing Blades in the Dark is a different play styles. I mean, it's if you're wanting more of a storytelling game than an actual more of a procedural. I get in this discussion with my brother all the time. My brother is always trying to throw out different game systems to me, and I'm like, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm not wanting to I can play this indie. It's like, yeah, but this system is made for that. I'm like, yes, but I don't want to do storytelling games. I want to do role-playing games, which yes, they are. One is the other, but the other is not necessarily. It's just just like
Shadow of the Demon Lord feels enough like D&D to feel.
It's built on the core of the 5th edition mechanic,
exactly.
So
yeah,
with a couple of Chaosium elements thrown in.
It feels different enough to not feel like 5th edition, but it feels enough like a D&D variant.
And that's because it's got the mechanical processes like a D&D game has, and that's it's like Blades in the Dark said is a very storyteller game. It's all about the story and less about the system. That's why I also don't like Powered by the Apocalypse games. I feel when I'm playing a Powered by the Apocalypse game, I could be sitting there. It's basically a board game where somebody's pulled the board out. Like every time I go and fight something, I'm the only one who rolls dice, and then I see what the result is of each die roll. And I feel like that's just like looking at the drawing a card off of a deck when you're going through a dungeon crawl board game, and it's like roll a d6 to fight the goblin. If you roll a 1 to 2, it hit you. You take damage. If you roll a 3 to 4, nothing happens. Roll another turn. 5 or 6, you do a point of damage to the goblin.
We have an hanging omens.
I'm actually kind of tempted to run Langmark.
We have Omen out with us. You got home from work, I take it. Looks things.
You must have heard we were talking about other game systems, and his ears started burning.
Well, actually, no, I know exactly what what Elfbait is talking about. It's like, look, I want to play the system because people actually play with me. Absolutely, I agree with you. I mean, but to be fair, and we are the outliers that say, "Ooh, I found this one. Look, it's the thief on Conan."
Yeah,
Conan's a fighter. Maybe a fighter thief if you stretched it.
Everything. Conan is not a class. You need to get over that.
You really want to, if you really want to use it more.
No, it is called a class. It's called the Barbarian. He's literally called Conan the Barbarian.
No.
It just needs to get played correctly. You really need to totally do away with class-based systems and just play a skill-based system. And then you can play you can puke all you want. Skill-based systems allow you to make pretty much any kind of concept of character you want.
Well, I'm just
based on the framework of his abilities.
I've got Conan the Adventurer, Conan the Mercenary, Conan the Barbarian. It's Conan.
I'm just saying. If you can do anything, you can basically do nothing. I prefer defined things. Like that's why I like having cleric classes. So I like having classes.
The problem is if you're trying to take a literary character who does not fit those defined characteristics of classes, and then you're trying to force it into a class. There's your problem. There are ways.
Yeah, but I'm not. I don't want it to be a one-to-one comparison. Just saying, well, if you want to play Conan as close within the framework of D&D, just play a fighter or a fighter thief. There you go.
Well,
I don't know. He spends most of the time avoiding fights, so maybe he is a thief with just a really high strength.
Well, Conan is probably 7th level. He just has 6 different classes is all. That's what you're complaining about. He's dual class.
God, and he is going to be terrible. Conan's too badass for that.
Yeah, but
he did dual class 7 times. That's true. Yeah,
let's see. Well, no, that's what makes Conan more interesting. You don't have to. Everyone goes for high levels, and all you're doing is going, okay, fine.
And the thing is, Conan in the books is not as indestructible as they make him out to be, in the comics.
Oh, he's not.
And
no,
the movies,
no,
because
he
spends a lot of time in jail, a lot of time captured, a lot of time injured.
I mean,
a lot of times avoiding fights, a lot of times dying in the wilderness.
If it hadn't been for his thief compatriot in the Tower of the Elephant fighting the spider before he'd have fucking died.
Well,
that spider
stuff like that. I mean, when you look at it left and right, is Bellette's the one that saved him. But I mean, Conan, and this is the only thing that when we talk about skill sets, the reason you go for skill-based games is when you have smaller players. When you play D&D, the assumption was 6 to 8 characters. And even the spellcasters had their own little niche because one would go utility and one would go combat. You didn't try going everything one-on-one, and I think that's what you have to look at. And
it's different styles of play, because if you're playing a skill-based system, you're usually trying to avoid combat too.
So. Like the thing that I don't like about skill-based systems, it feels too. I don't know. It just feels too anal, I suppose. It's just like it's too crunchy. I just don't like it. Whereas it's like I like the way D&D tends to handle quote skills. It's just like, look, you either know something or you don't. You can either do something or you don't. Leave the dice rolling for combat.
But I mean, games like Traveller and games like there's a lot of easy systems. Even
skill-based systems are almost as old as D&D because you've got.
I mean, to be fair, everything Kevin Crawford has ever made is just a 2d6 skill-based system. So yeah, I suppose.
I mean, the two, but it's not that hard for things. I think the problem is when you start looking at it, is what else do we add in there? But I mean, we got class-based systems too in Dungeon Crawl Classics, and I like how they did it with there.
I have fallen out of love with DCC as of late. I like the fighter.
What's that?
I've fallen out of love with DCC, to be perfectly honest.
No, it's the last part I didn't hear.
I like the fighter. I like the warrior.
Mikey.
Well, so it's too bad you like the fighter because that was last week's discussion. We're talking about Thieves.
I know. I went to bed.
Thieves have skills. That's where the skill-based conversation still.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, back onto the next bit. I wanted to get onto about.
Yes.
Is Halakar's comment here sort of guided me in this direction with Grey being the origin of many an early thief in a game. I've read most of the Lankmar novels. It was a long time ago, but I never got a chance to play the D&D setting. I've got one Lankmar module somewhere in my collection, but I never got a chance to play the setting. But it's one I would have liked to have played because it seemed to fit the whole idea of playing a thief or an assassin perfectly. It's where we got a lot of the thief class from, and it seems like a perfect environment in which to use a thief type character. And of course, Fatbird and Grey Mouse are probably both, I'm pretty sure according to Deities and Demigods, both have got decent thief levels.
Well, what's funny is when you mean decent levels, I guess the problem I had is I always looked at like, oh, look at how high of a level they have. But, really, once you get up to the 5th through 7th level, you're pretty badass when you really think about D&D. I mean, that's the problem when everyone's like, oh, they're not strong enough. Well, 5th through 7th levels taking on like purple worms and crap. Yeah. I mean, you're fighting. You're fighting some
Grey Mouse. Grey Mouse is a 15th level thief in this, and an 11th level fighter, and a 3rd level magic user.
I will say though, Geek, if you want, I have I bought the Lankmar DCC stuff because I do like the setting stuff that DCC has, just on like the game itself. But I've read through. They have some modules. It's like a box set. Like you have like a setting book and you have some modules for running it. So if you want to run Lankmar, it's not quite the same as the AD&D stuff, but you could try and get that. I think it's on Amazon still, I think.
At the moment, I've got so many games stacking up that I want to.
No, I get you. But if at some point, hell, I could run it for you at some point if you want, because I have them. Do it with like AD&D or no D&D or something.
Well, I mean, really, the real question is, could you just directly transport it over to the AD&D stuff?
Probably. Yeah, I haven't read the original. I haven't read the AD&D versions of it, so I don't know how well they transfer, but it's possible.
No.
If you have an old enough Deities and Demigods, you've got all the gods.
Yes.
Yeah. Well. No. What I meant by that was a lot of the stuff I look for the DCC things. I mean, I can look at what's in here for DCC, but I think I could do almost a direct port from one to the other. I mean, that's what that's what I'm referring to. I was like, I'll just run it as AD&D and just go from there. That's what I was referring to.
So, what about Thieves in other systems? How have other systems dealt with the idea of the thief, the roguish sort of class?
non-D&D one.
I'm obviously, as I already said, running a game of Burp at the moment, and initially the thief class was called a scout, and thieving abilities were classed as subterfuge skills. they were very limited. There was ambush, stalk and hide in a combined skill, pick lock and disarm traps, and that was it, along with probably a decent perception on the character, and the ability to move fairly, probably quite quickly in light armor and basic combat skills. And it was a level and skill based system, combined the two. And the whole idea of the scout is that the scout class advanced more quickly in subterfuge skills than any of the other classes. All classes got bits and pieces spread across the skills, but they got more points per level in that than any of the others. There was an optional rogue and burglar classes added to the second edition version. It was an optional rule, which the rogue had a bit more fighting, and the burglar had almost everything thrown into subterfuge skills. But that was their take, and I find in that game that the stalk and hide mechanic, because of the nature of the game, pick locks and disarm traps have barely ever come up whenever I played it, barely ever. But stalk and hide comes up all the time, and thus a decent scout, maybe a wood elf or hobbit, that type of race that's going to be naturally good at moving in the environment with stalk and hide and a bit of bow skills and a good dexterity, becomes an absolutely lethal proposition at low levels. I've only ever played the game at low levels because but my players have a habit of dying in it. But that's my experience of running a thief type characters in other games. What other games do you guys know? And
I'm kind of in the same boat as Elfbait, where he's like, "Oh, there's other systems," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I can just take D&D, and if I want other flavor, I'll just like the OSR. I just like, yeah, this OSR has. Oh, you want space adventures? Well, I've got this. Oh, you want like Indian myth? Well, I've got that. Like, so I don't really play other systems. I just like D&D too much.
So let's see. If we're going to talk about other systems, I mean, you can go because I saw this thrown up. Not that anyone really remembers, but with your Shadowrun characters, that's almost you have both the hacking and the picking locks and the adepts that go through stuff along with having their stealth. Those are what you get for those kind of characters, and those are very useful because you're trying to avoid combat as much as possible. And I think that it's I mean, when we start saying thief, a lot of times it's like, well, what are you trying to steal? For the Conan, what's the difference? Well, really, what's interesting for the Conan is they kind of expect you to go exploring and things, do some heists, and it's an urban dungeon feel for it, and they have a few different skills for it. So you're almost kind of doing an Indiana Jones in certain cases. Not always. I mean, they have other books for stuff too, but that's what I've noticed. A lot of it is you just focus all your skill sets into the thief aspect, and the Blades in the Dark. I understand where Elfbait comes from, because the other guys roll. If you're the player, the one rolling dice as a DM, you're just kind of sitting there, just, oh, you rolled this, okay, well, this happens. So, but the only other ones I can think of are, but that's really what it comes down to, is they just use different skills in most cases, and a lot of them don't even do picking pockets. They'll add that here and there, but that doesn't seem to be a big thing. As much as they have that in D&D, I'm not sure how often anyone actually, like Halakar said earlier, is how many people actually use pickpockets. Because the skill is so low, your odds of getting caught all the time make it almost.
When I'm a player, I use it all the time. But yes, none of my players use it. But yeah, actually, that's not true. If you guys follow Night Below, Bob the Assassin was picking pockets all the time.
Oh, okay.
I would like to just address L in the chat. L. I don't really care. I'm just gonna say it right now. Hasbro could own D&D to the end of time, and I wouldn't care, because I have enough games to last me for the rest of my life. And for one thing, anyway, they can't win the OGL, because no matter how hard they try, they can't copyright rules. So it's not a big deal. Don't include OGLs in your games. There. Simple
anyway,
as.
we're not here tonight to talk about OGL.
Oh, I know. But he brought it up.
Larissa mentions Call of Cthulhu. I think there's a lot of ways to have a thief type character in Call of Cthulhu, but she's right in the sense that the criminal and gangster sort of professions will have underworld contacts, which brings in the role playing elements of a thief type character. Of course, the Thieves Guild, but you could argue that the private investigator could easily have good thief-related skills.
Right.
You just need a bit of sleight of hand, a bit of stealth, a bit of ability to sort of hide, and you can simulate a thief-type character in Call of Cthulhu. In fact, it's extremely effective and extremely useful to have somebody in the party who can creep around in Call of Cthulhu. Whether it's the thievery or the more the sort of the sneaking, I think is the more useful aspect. So I've never had many people doing much in the way of stealing directly from people, but it's more like a case of grab an item and off a shelf and hide it, that sort of thing.
I'm thinking, like, for Exalted, if you're going to look at that one, they get special skills to make them invisible or to hide their abilities, and then they also, get, oh well, you're a favorite for this. But those are all skill-based systems. Other than that, most of the ones that actually have a thief class are pretty standard. I mean, I'm sure I can find some in this book, which is the Iron Kingdoms. When to avoid the 4E stuff, they did their own system, but they call them archetypes or careers, so that's a little bit different.
Yeah, and I mean that's I've played skill-based systems that still have career paths. If you're playing the old FOSSA Star Trek, you had you went through Starfleet training, and then you had your specialty, and then they usually have some sort of secondary skill. Palladium does the same thing. Palladium is ostensibly
it's all skills, yeah.
It's all skills with it on top of a D&D foundation. Most science fiction games are skill based, even if you have a specialty, a class. Like think Alien. Like Alien's kind of weird. It's really soft on how it does that. Like because you have only 5 overall skills that are broad. Broad categories.
You have 10 skills. Well, what is it? Maybe it's something like 12 skills over 4 stats, and there's a few different.
Yeah, but your starting character only can really ever effectively tap into like 5 skills because they're very broad. They're very broad.
Oh, I kind of like the broad skills.
Technology.
Someone who knows something about cyberpunk and sci-fi want to have a crack at Blaine's question here?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. It's not my field at all.
So fixers and hackers or netrunners from Cyberpunk are very much in the thief category. But the netrunner is in Cyberpunk games pretty much their version of a magic user also. In that he's the big brain character who does all of the things that defy the
laws of physics,
the physical limits. Well, not laws of physics, because I mean he's still doing stuff in a computer, but he's and then the fixers are sort of the bard side, faceman side of the thief, rogue, whatever you want to call it, dynamic.
Well, like I said, Shadowrun, they did that. Most of it is usually you get the hacker, the guy who's stealth hacking. So a lot of them feel more like these. Whenever they're trying to go through the lasers and stuff like that, that's what you're finding, and they're squeezing into areas.
Although there's an element of combat with a lot of the hacker type characters in Cyberpunk games, because they're usually fighting programs with programs, and so they're in there, and the big digital Balrog is coming after them. And
you know what? As much as I love the idea of it, it slowed the game so much. I just hated having to deal with that.
That's why the only thing that I would ever use from Cyberpunk Red really is the new net running rules, because they have them built to where they can function in the same time frame and space as combat.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that was some of the problems I had with some of those other ones.
When we used to play, your Netrunner, why take him into the field when he can easily just sit back at the base and hack the system? So you're really automatically splitting the party anytime a Netrunner is involved. So.
Well, and that
don't
happens.
You know you never split the party.
Oh, we split the party all the time.
Saxius's spidey sense was tingling. He came back to put us on track.
Yes, but we're talking about the thievy, sneaky types in Cyberpunk
other games.
Saxius is too controlling. He needs to put the whip away and be a good boy and have some fun.
Hey, you're the one who's talking about niche protection. That's Saxius's niche. Don't infringe on his niche.
And Saxius is lawful evil. He's not putting anything away.
No, he's not. No. That's the thing. He's not lawful evil. He's lawful anal. There's a difference.
Don't you be angering my DM for tomorrow night.
You're talking a lot of crap when he's not here, I noticed, but you're awfully quiet when he is.
No, I do when he's here. I do.
Well, yes, but none of us, but we all kind of ignore you anyway. So
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Whatever. Whenever it comes to alignment, you have lost all credibility. I mean, after your little rant.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I like, I mean. Well,
I will say,
like my takes are wrinkled in the brain, good sir. It's the one thing that I'm not smooth-brained on. And your takes are, well, moving on.
Well, here's the difference: is my head's like a basketball, and yours is kind of like a piece of paper. Mine has that.
Oh.
Speaking to
but here's the thing. Here's the thing, man. When if you stab your brain with a pen, it deflates. Mine doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, yours falls apart when it gets wet.
Yeah.
This of course is another thing that Thieves should be good at: hurling insults
and banter. Yeah.
Hold on. That's the bard's skill set. That's the subclass of thief.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but let's go on to bards were thieves. Bards were thieves in 1E. Come on, man.
Let's go back onto subclasses of thieves, and because there we go, the assassin.
You know what the problem that I had with the assassin is? It never seemed to really, as much as people loved it, when you actually like delve into it, reading the player's handbook, you're just like, this is not a character that's an NPC style character, or one that the player or that the one the DM allows into the group just to create some havoc every so often.
I think that the assassin was originally presented in the pages of Dragon as an NPC class.
Probably. I mean, no, because if I remember, it was because Dragon came like around
Dragon's
the time of 1E, because
before AD&D.
What 1970?
Yeah, it was. Oh, really?
Yes.
I thought it was like 79 or something. Jesus. Okay.
The biggest problem for me with the assassin was the chance of keeping your true nature secret. It was, to anyone who had the book, it was absolutely impossible.
Obvious.
Because you couldn't pose as a thief without foregoing your array of weapons and ability to use a shield. You could possibly claim that you were a lightly armed fighter. But surely at some point you might find some magic chainmail or something like that, and the party will go, here you go. Oh, no, I'd rather wear my leather armor.
If you're high dex, then you can get away with that, because taking away your leather armor costs you certain abilities. So
yeah, but only to a point, I think. Because what happens if you're then presented with magical chainmail? Oh, we found a suit of chainmail +2.
That's only assuming you're trying to keep it secret from other players.
Yeah.
Like if you've got a good group of players and they know you're an assassin, then it's like they're not going to metagame. They're going to play properly.
Yeah. To be honest, in my experiment that I'm doing with Swords and Wizardry, I'm just going to be like, look, because you guys are new to the concept of alignment and stuff, because you probably didn't play games where it mattered. All it is just a mechanical thing. It's on a cosmological level. It's your team, but it's not going to come up like all that often, right? So don't even worry about it. If you're an assassin, you can work with a lawful cleric. Don't worry about it. Unless you start killing your own party members, then they can just kill you.
Well,
At that point,
it does depend on if there's a player hell-bent on playing a ranger or a paladin, though, then there's a problem.
I would just say no. I would just tell them, like, look, your church and your god have given you free license to work with them, as long as they're not being complete psychopaths.
Not paladins.
No.
And in Swords and Wizardry, like, I can get away with that because they're just lawful. So I can just say, look, your god is telling you it's fine, as long as they're not being too egregious. It's okay. You can make use of them.
Now hold it. If you actually look at the Dungeon Master's Guide and what was in there, and this was my feeling, because as I'm getting older and actually like reading some of the stuff, and I assume that we're all feeling this.
You can read?
I know.
Wow.
It just doesn't come through osmosis. I have more than Braille. No.
Come on now, Omanel. He's a puppet. You know, he doesn't have working eyes, so.
Well, the problem is he has a hand up his butt. Anyway. No.
Stealing my jokes? How dare you, sir?
No. Hold it. The whole point of if you look at the Dungeon Master's Guide and the percentage for doing it, the way I really felt with this is that it was looking at some way, because he would play with multiple players in different groups every night, by my understanding. So it was whoever was available.
Table thing,
yeah, it was an open table. Whoever came in did that. That's why they had the 1-to-1. So it'd say, hey, look, you can't play tonight because your character's training. I think there's a lot of that aspect that we forget because we play with the same people week after week after week. But for him, since he did the 1-on-1, it's like, oh, well, you know what? Your character says. I felt that the assassin was one of those that, some other player could pay the assassin to go take out another character in another party. Because if you actually read in the old Dungeon Master's Guide,
possible.
It says, if you read it, it says encounters another party in certain cases. I mean, they actually have that in as an NPC group. So it's a little bit different. I think that I at least the way that I feel about it was we didn't grow up in that gaming group that he had where they're all together playing every night.
The
we just
50
went over
people.
Yeah. I mean, hell, I was having problems trying to find 5 or 4.
And I always played with the same people all the time. Yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of these things didn't work out the same that you would have done. And I think that's the same thing with the Bard. As much as people talk about it, my feeling really was that Bard was intended to run with a lot of low-level characters. And I hear the same thing. Actually, was it Justin Alexander was talking about that? Apparently, a lot of times, high-level characters would farm low-level characters, like the magic user, and they would come over. Well, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean they would farm them up to certain levels so then they could start, getting better stuff. It's like, oh, well, the 5th level fighter fights as well as the 5th level magic user fights as well as the 2nd level fighter. Okay, he'll run with them for a while. And
I also wonder if the assassin may have been an early attempt to make a character who could play and effectively and have it work, as a one-on-one player, like, a one-on-one game, Well, like, we don't have a party tonight, but Bob showed up. Let me pull out my assassin and you can go on a hit.
Yeah. Well, didn't it say that?
I like thieves and to some extent assassins. Probably assassins a bit more than thieves in this instant. As a DM, they're an opportunity to get guild play and little side quests in play, where a character, the party maybe have they've got to try and take the enemy person alive. However, the assassin gets a bonus of 500 gold pieces if he brings back the head.
I always found it amusing that people forget that thieves guilds aren't just thieves, though. Like, I remember some guy, one of the fighters in one of our groups, says like he had no problem with pissing off the thieves guild because like he could beat them all up in a fight, or because thieves are not assassins. I'm like, they have fighters.
They have fighters and they have magic users. And
there were 2 thieves in our collective groups. There's a couple of there are basically 2 or 3 gaming groups in our area, and one of the other gaming groups decided to hire my AD&D barbarian to join their thieves guild.
Well, it's there's nothing stopping the Thieves Guild from saying we'll just pay some guys that don't know we're part of the Thieves Guild, and didn't the old magazine
pay off the town guard?
Well, didn't the old didn't they have a beggar class too?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go into, did they have? Yes, Dragon probably presented to us every a possible option. Like it was what issue 3 has the idiot class.
I'm coming to that next week. Don't that's a spoiler for me. I haven't read issue 3 yet.
That's right.
I would like to ask
about it before.
Dave Mills. I don't know if you're still here, and I don't know how far this was in the conversation, but how am I the smartest person in the convoy? I know you're asking that questioningly, but I'm like, how if I'm the smartest person in the group, we are all screwed. Because I am dumb as a doornail, man.
You know what? I like playing D&D because I don't have to worry about how many people I'm going to kill if something goes wrong.
Now,
okay, good. Dave, I was worried there for a second.
The reason I like the assassin, I will say now, is because assassins feature quite heavily in some of my favorite modules. My channel started with me reviewing modules. I love the old AD&D modules, and my favorite module of all time is. I'm disappointed in you all.
All I can think of.
I don't play test.
I don't know many modules, man. I'm a neophyte. What the hell? I play OSR.
I didn't study. Sorry.
A4 was the only one I can think of that had the assassin right there, if I remember correctly.
I'm so disappointed. I'm sure someone in chat knows my favorite module of all time. I've talked about it enough on earlier streams. There we go. Oh, no, not When a Star Falls. When a Star Falls has dropped a little. Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
In the house, spoiler incoming.
Oh, yeah.
You have Ned.
Shake Shack.
Who is one of the greatest NPCs in the history of AD&D. He is absolutely magnificent, and he is an assassin. Village of Homlet. If you kill Lareth, it says at the end, a high-level assassin will be stalking the party. It's the ultimate Gygax dick move. And another great module with assassins. Against the Cult of the Reptile God. There are assassins in there as well. All these great low-level adventures introduce assassins right from the get-go. And Dave Mills
Callstaff has a question. Callstaff has a question for you, Geek. He said, "I thought it was the Forest Oracle."
Excuse me.
Well, and like Omen, in Conan, there's always assassin type people running around. I think assassins. Another reason they may have included assassins is because that's another kind of a staple of sword and sandal kind of sorcery type of stuff.
I mean, it's just such an iconic concept. If you need someone kind of disappeared, why not pay a mercenary whom you have plausible deniability on?
That's why I felt the assassin was a better NPC than a PC class. Just I mean, when you start reading the Dungeon Master Guide, the Player's Handbook, it just didn't seem that this was a class that could really work well together long term with the group.
Well, also remember, First Ed wasn't about the good heroes solving problems. It was, Gygax played with that West Marches group troop style where people would show up with their characters and do what you're going to do. The expectation is there would be a variety.
I would say that the Gygax did say that you're supposed to play heroic characters. Now, whether he meant like what would be Bronze Age heroics, where you're epic characters or heroes in the moral sense, you could argue
very
either way.
Clear that you're not supposed to be playing epic heroes in D&D. You're supposed to be playing regular dudes.
Well, I mean, okay. When I say epic, okay. When you get to domain level play, that kind of changes a little bit.
Yeah, but at that point, you're supposed to be either farming those magic users or
True.
Getting into domain play.
Well, we're looking at it of having all of the, like Elfbait and I had looked a lot of the Dragon magazine. But if it's a game that you just picked up and bought, then you only had generally your 4 books. And so then you go, well, what about a character, and so you look at it, and they didn't necessarily, I think, what was it? Maybe the Anti-Paladin was the only one in the Dungeon Master's Guide.
No, Anti-Paladin came out.
No, he was in the Dragon Mag article, yeah. But that was clearly like satirical, like it was
into DMG.
It was obviously meant to be a joke, to be honest. So
I thought there was something in the Dungeon Master's Guide that mentioned something about it. But anyway, the players that open up the book, it's like, well, what can I use against them? They're like, well, I have this fighter, but that may not work. And then all of a sudden you get this assassin. You're like, oh, I can use this for my NPC. Now, it doesn't matter whether it works well with the party, but that's what you have as your basic class to go in and say, okay, this is what I'm going to use. So,
well, I mean, you could.
The last time
it could also be that like, I'll go for it.
Last time I ran since the Secret Assault Marsh, 2 players playing the part of assassins. One of the guys who he hasn't been in the channel or on the stream for a long time because work has got in the way.
Captain,
but Captain, yes, Captain. He asked if he could play the role of Ned. He was joining the game late, and he said, okay. He says, I know the adventure. I've run the adventure many times, so it wouldn't be fair for me to be a regular PC. But can I play the part of Ned?
Is that the merfolk or the sea elf?
No, Ned is the assassin.
This is the assassin.
Rewind the stream. DK, go back about 10 minutes.
wait. So no. What I mean is no. Because I remember he also played the sea elf as well.
Yeah, he dropped. He played Ned, then he came back later to play Oceanus.
Right.
But initially, they discovered Ned, and Captain joined the party, and he was playing the part of Ned, being helpful. Oh, can I possibly have a dagger so I can help out? That sort of thing. And there was a moment, for those who know the adventure, when the party discover the way down to the lower level, there is a route whereby they trip a trap that makes the characters run away. And one of the characters became so fearful of the trap. It's one of the mechanics in the adventure that they couldn't go through. They couldn't enter that room. They couldn't go through that room. However, 2 of the party members went down the stairs in that room, and they got the scared player character. They put a sack over his head and dragged him into the room to try to spun him round a bit, dragged him into the room, so he didn't know where he was. Captain said, you go down the stairs and have a poke around. I'll stay up here and make sure it's all okay. And yes, I believe it was a halfling. Poor little halfling. Were you playing? Dave, are you using a different name on here? And were you playing in that game? I don't know. But it was the halfling, unless you remember the video I did on it. The halfling stayed upstairs. They went downstairs and were poking around, and then there were noises from upstairs. They heard a gurgling sound and a shriek and all that sort of thing. And Ned came running downstairs going, the goblins have attacked. Goblins have attacked. Whereas what had happened is he had murdered the halfling. Which they quickly managed to work out, and they chased him away. They chased him off, and they eventually killed him. But it made for a very, very entertaining half an hour. And the players weren't remotely salty about it because they were old school players who
understood.
No, they understood where it's at. They'd let an assassin join in with them, and the assassin is as assassin does. He's there to try and stop the party from progressing. They were progressing, so he killed them and tried to get away. They then rolled well to take him out, and they did take him out. So,
oh, good grief! I'm just looking at the player's handbook right now for the assassin fees, and you start reading the assassin fees, and it really does feel like you said, it's either a single character, it's a single player, or some of these others in here. That's why.
Also remember, those fees are worth XP, and assassins get XP for assassinating.
Yeah, I will also point out as well that we're also looking at this, like what I thought of the thief acrobat being pretty much only good for city crawling until Elf proved otherwise. I think the assassin as a player class, if we're going to go down this route, where I still think they're useful in dungeon delving,
No, they
I'm
absolutely.
not-
I would still, I would say that even with the, I don't even think like this whole thing of they might not gel with the party. It's like you can work around that if you're all mature. But the thing is, I think they best typify city crawling. I think that's where they shine.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree that an assassin's strength, because they've got the disguise sort of skills, they've got the ability
Yep.
to. So
Or
they
if
are
you're doing,
infiltrating.
if you're doing like wilderness type game, well, not wilderness, but you know what I mean. Like you're not doing dungeon crawls. You're doing that sort of, it may not be
Between
in the
town
city,
stuff.
but you're going to the village, or you got to go kill that druid in the woods, or
Yeah. I mean, like even like that's why I like in the Swords and Wizardry game I'm running, I set it in Amherst, and it's great that I set it in Valenwald because there's a major city. There's a place beyond a wall called the Ghoul Lands. There's a bunch of different topographical places. There's tons of villages, tons of cities, and it fits for the training rules I want to do. So if they want to do more assassination stuff, I can set it in the main city. It makes it so much easier, and they still have a bunch of other shit. So, like, it just, I think when it comes to the assassin, you just have to bear in mind that, yeah, you can do wilderness stuff with them. I just think they're best suited when you're in the city, you know.
Well, I mean, looking at the spying table right now, there's that.
Mm-hmm.
Time required to accomplish a mission. It just the chance of discovery. And to be fair, you don't even have to claim you're an assassin. You just say, "Hey, I'm a thief," and you really, as long as you're like
because they have got they've got thief skills from 2 levels lower, so they can bluff their way around being a thief.
Oh, really? So
those skills,
do they not get their thief skills until 3rd level?
Correct.
No, they get
you get backstab at 1st level, but thief skills the rest you get at 3rd level.
Yeah, because they get point. Yeah, because
I always read that as them getting thief skills at 1st level, but them not getting better till they got beyond 3rd level.
No, the way that if that's how it's worded, no, they get them at 3rd level. It's like as if they were two. It's like the paladin's turn undead thing. Yep.
I don't think
in
it
Osric
specifies with.
In Osric, they specify you get it at 1st level, but they don't start advancing until 3rd. But in actual AD&D, you don't get them until 3rd.
Yeah, I don't think it was particularly clear. I never read that. I never saw that as being particularly clear. So I've gone with Osric.
I thought that I've heard like with people that like I was actually talking to Doof about that with Swords and Wizardry, and he was kind of stunned that assassins don't get in like Swords and Wizardry get their thief skills until 3rd level. I'm like, yeah, it's not on the chart. It literally says it starts at 3rd level. You don't get them until 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually,
but you do get your backstab at level 1.
Oh yeah, you do get assassin skills like disguise and poison.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right, but you also get the backstab and the surprise stuff, but you don't get like delicate work and traps, hiding in shadow, move silently, listen at door, things that you don't get that until 3rd.
Slan brings up something I wanted to mention as well, is that yes, assassins are spies too. And that's one of the key duties, and we're talking about the ne'er-do-well, low, vulgar assassin. You don't have the other way to play that is you've got the operative type character,
James Bond,
Bond. Yeah, they work for the crown. Yeah.
I played Batman with an acrobat. You could play James Bond with an assassin.
Yep.
I mean, you could even go the route of like if you're say got a Middle Eastern vibe going, the Ishmaeli, like, and that kind of ties into what like I heard EOTB say where you have an anti-paladin in AD&D. It's called the assassin. So you've got like the Knights Templar class, the paladin, versus the Ishmaeli assassin, the assassin. So you literally set up these 2 religious sects of one of these guys murders people for religious purposes. These guys defend people for religious purposes. It'd be kind of interesting.
There's any number of ways to lay it out. The assassin class doesn't have to be the gritty, grubby murderer for hire. They have other purposes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're all in there.
And in those modules,
hey, if Assassin's Creed has taught us anything, it's that an assassin can be anything.
That's very true.
In those modules I mentioned, Ned is in there as a spy. And in Against the Cult of the Reptile God, Derek is in there as a spy. That's how they are. That's how they are presented. But they are spies who will take the opportunity to kill if it so presents it.
Yeah, that's kind of the funny thing about thieves in general is that coming into this, like the backstab the thieves get is kind of like icing on the cake. Like that stuff like doesn't come up nearly as often as like new schoolers would like to think it does. Even I was kind of stunned when I saw the backstab, and I was like, huh. And then it made me think, oh yeah, no, there really are the skill monkey, for lack of a better term. Like that is their bread and butter. That's what they do. That's what thieves do.
Came up a lot in our games because if you're going through the dungeon and there's an orc guard up there and you want to take him out, you send the thief to try and backstab him.
I mean, even for OSE, he gets what, +4 to hit?
Yes,
you have
and
surprise,
all,
yeah.
If you strike from behind, if you in AD&D, you know it's if you strike, they're unaware, and you did your stealth checks. I don't know if it's moves silently or hide in shadows. It might be both actually.
Whatever's
right. You have surprise. The metric is if you have surprise. You don't have to have necessarily succeeded on the moving or hiding to gain surprise.
So technically, you could have just kicked in the door on the orcs and still.
That's true.
If you did it well enough.
I mean, if those orcs are within 10 feet of the door, then yeah, theoretically, because you can't range.
As we said earlier, though, as I said earlier, I mean, a sensible DM will modify surprise chances based on
of course.
And those checks. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just coming into the mindset.
Brian brings up the Assassin's Not an adventure we have skimmed over a little. Have any of you ever played or run Assassin's Not?
Yeah, I have.
It's a difficult one to run.
That's L2, isn't it?
That's L2. The start of my AD&D game was set on Lendor before they moved over to the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
What is L2 called again? What I didn't catch the name.
The Assassin's Not.
The Assassin's Not.
It vaguely ties to L1. That's what gets me. Is L has like the Baron. That's the only thing that relates the two modules together.
Yeah. Well, they're on the same. They're like a day apart from each other. Yeah, they're set on Lendor. But I ran it. We had a good time with it. We liked the mystery.
It's not a perfect module by any stretch of the imagination, but it was an interesting one. It is a tricky one to run, and a lot hinges on how the DM wants to drop in the nuggets, the clues in the adventure. The clues are there. It's not particularly well laid out. Unfortunately, the sadly departed Len Lakofka, he was great at creating environments, and but his layout skills and actually presenting the information weren't the best. He was I thought he was in a very imaginative module writer. He created L1's a great sandbox with some very entertaining elements, and you can tell he loved his work. But L2 was a possibly in some way a little bit of a step almost too far, in that investigative D&D, it was difficult to pull off. But in terms of as an adventure, it was interesting. I like it. I had fun running it. My players had fun working it out.
Yeah, pretty much.
But just as a question, just to get to the mechanics, since I brought up backstab again, what are your guys' thoughts on how later editions of D&D allowed thieves to get ranged sneak attacks?
I'm okay.
In the framework of a sneak attack.
Yeah, I've allowed, even in old school, I've allowed sneak attacks being ranged.
Really?
I do allow ranged sneak attacks in OSE. I no longer do it in AD&D. That's just the way I've perceived the rules and how I've evolved with them. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with counting being shot in the back as a sneak
perfect
attack.
sense that you would line up a shot with your arrow from the tree, and and get the sneak attack bonus. I mean, it's
right. Because I've been wrestling with it for like the Apocalypse game I'm working on for the Thief class, which is really like Thief Assassin or Thief Ranger. I haven't decided, and I was talking with people about using guns to sneak attack, and I came to the conclusion that they can with like one-handed shotguns, small pistols,
not ray guns. Sorry,
no. It's set in a kind of where even gunpowder guns
with any kind of gun once.
Yeah.
But the point that I'm talking about is it has to be within
it was 10 a joke feet. Based on last week's demonetization.
Oh, okay.
So, like old school essentials, I allow the range sneak attack mainly because I don't think it'll break the system. Old school essential sneak attack caps out at double damage. It doesn't scale up like it does in AD&D.
Oh yeah, I forgot the scaling. Yeah.
So whereas AD&D, with multiple segments and being able to triple your rate of fire with missile fire if you have surprise, I think
it's too much.
That's with Thieves being able to do quintuple damage. Yeah, I think that probably get a little abusive.
Yeah, but the thing is with mine is like I'm taking from like the Lion and Dragon system where you get randomized benefits. So I'm still tampering with it. Like I won't have this for years.
Yeah, I can't speak to another system without seeing it. But
so in your days of DMing, what's the most imaginative ways in which people have turned the tide of adventures using Thieves?
I can think of, I've mentioned a case where it was a complete blunder. I mean, it did turn the tide of the game, but because it killed the thief.
I mean, I would say because like Shield of Eyes was playing in my London game for Lion and Dragon. He was playing a thief, and he was tasked with Johnny Longknives, the leader of the Thieves Guild, right? To break in and get a box. And he thought the best way to do this was I'm going to get this keg of gunpowder that we stole from cultists to put it outside the building and blow it up. And then I realized after he did this that I had set up, because this was when the tensions between the Yorkists and Lancastrians were rising, he basically detonated what amounted to about maybe 5 sticks of dynamite in London when 2 rival factions have 2 standing armies in the major city of England, in the middle of political tensions. So
he literally lit the powder keg.
Basically, yeah. And it was good because I was transitioning to Frogland anyway, but to say that won't be affecting the world for the Frogland campaign would be a lie. But yeah, I was like, after that point, I was like, I literally got to the point where I was like, yeah, Shield, I can try and save your life if you go to Frogland, if you want to keep playing, but they can never come back to London because the Thieves Guild will just kill him. And he's like, yeah, it's fine, just kill him off. And I said, okay, well, Johnny Longknives take you, slit your throat, hangs you from London Bridge with the word traitor carved onto your body.
I remember 2 particularly annoying thieves in one game because they were also both psionic. They spent the entire campaign trying to screw with the rest of the party and steal their stuff.
For me, I mean, when I was running my AD&D modules campaign with my group, who I had dragged over to AD&D from 5th edition, in UK4, when a star falls, there's a bit where you are led into a questioning chamber. There is a sage behind a curtain who instructs the party to lay down a certain amount of gold to have a question answered. And what's meant to happen here is the party is meant to ambush the sage to gain access to the tower. What actually happened was the thief slipped around the curtains that are draped around the room, moved silently behind the sage, who was himself behind a curtain, and the entire questioning scene was carried out with a dagger pressed to the sage's neck, which meant that the answers they got to the questions were a little bit more helpful than they actually should have been. When that turned that adventure quite nicely. But probably the biggest, most effective use of a thief I've seen was in G1, steadying the Hill Giant Chief. The party were there observing the Hill Giant steadying. Although many of us will be familiar with this, it is a classic location in the history of AD&D. There is a massive party going on in there. Raucous Hill Giants are getting very, very drunk with various emissaries from other giant clans in the Great Hall. The thief By this time, of course, he's now about 10th or 11th level, same thief. And he's got a ring of invisibility and boots of elven kind and things like that. Slips on his ring, slips on his boots, clambers in to the steading and finds various guards asleep, sleeping off sleeping off the effects of the party. He creeps around for a while, learns the basic layout of the place because he's invisible and silent, so no one can spot him. So they've got half of the steading mapped out already. He then murders several of the guards, brings the party in through the route that he has secured and made safe, points the party to where he found the women and children in the Hill Giant's lair. He's left some of the guards alive, smears those guards that are drunk and asleep with blood. They murder the women and children, and they plant evidence on the guards that one of them went on a drunken rampage.
So Duncan, literally Macbeth stuff.
Right out of Macbeth.
My God. That is
and then the whole party, under cover of a silence 15-foot radius spell and all that sort of stuff, sneak out the way they came. And it was all set up by the thief doing and it took him about 2 hours. The rest of the party were they didn't care. They were sat back watching the thief do his thing.
He was intelligent, ruthless, and a little bit lucky, and he pulled it off.
Exactly.
That is amazing.
He had his time in the limelight, and he absolutely turned that adventure. Because all they did is they retreated, and they went back to the cave where they were hiding, and just sat there for a few days and watched what happened. As the smoke slowly started billowing up from within the keep. Yes. And then they stormed the steading afterwards.
And Hill Giants are not the brightest of the giants either.
Exactly.
So, I thought aren't storm giants like really, really smart?
Yeah.
Well, they're at the top of the hierarchy of the giants there. So
yeah, but what about the Hill Giants? They're what? Are they?
They're
it's like
they're
basically giant Neanderthals.
Yeah.
Just a little above over.
They are dumb as a sack of hammers.
So there was that. I can think of what we did. Well, we only played a few before we all dispersed, but there's second edition. My friend always liked doing Ravenloft. Didn't matter where you were, whatever you're going to do, somehow you're going to end up in Ravenloft.
Okay.
Ravenloft. Yeah, well, we kind of do that.
Fear and Loathing in Barovia.
Well, no, we didn't start off in Barovia. You can start wherever you want, and you just ended up there. So I forget what we were. We were like 4th or 5th level or something. Anyway, we were two halfling thief acrobats, and then the other guy was. Anyway, we were doing our thing, bouncing around, and we were in town. There was like the normal carnival atmosphere, so we started doing that. Well, he got offended because we rolled really well, so we got a bunch of money. So people are throwing us money instead of these other troubadours. So they got really mad. They grabbed my friend. He said, "This huge man going over," and he didn't like the DM did not like the other player. To be fair, anyway, the player, not the character. Anyway, he grabbed his character, lifted up, and so what are you gonna do? And so I sat there, and I think my weapon was a sling. So I spun it around and popped the guy in the groin. Of course, he drops the acrobat. I immediately turn around and hand it to the bystander next to me. So this huge fighter turns around, looks at this innocent bystander, and says, "You're mine." Grabs him. They both disappear like that, like in a puff of smoke. I'm like, I lost my sling. So that was one. And then we ended up in Ravenloft, and I forgot what was the one that was like Frankenstein in Ravenloft. I don't remember.
Adam's Wrath.
Yeah, it was Adam. Well, they had him, and he said, when you see him, and he comes out, and we see this hand, and he's just about ready to lift his head over, and I said, "We run." The DM turns to me and goes, "What? You're supposed to fight him?" And I went, "We're halfling thieves. Do you think we're going to stand and fight?" And he just shrugged his shoulders.
We're underleveled. We're underleveled, and we're two thieves and a fighter against a flesh golem. That's
never
stupid.
an obligation to fight in D&D.
Exactly.
Well, it was exact. Well, but it just surprised me. Expected us to do something, and I said, "No, we're halfling thieves. We're going to run for it." He's like, "Yeah, okay, that makes sense." But that's what we did.
There was an assassin in one game that I ran. It was the character I ran. I ran the player once. It was like, I think it's back in that age where you still did like, sleeping over, kind of a thing, right? And we're like, let's play D&D. And so we made characters on the spot, and he made an assassin who posed as like a jester, like full on like jingle bell hat and Harlequin clothes. And he played it with an annoying French accent, like comedic French accent. And his weapon of choice was a spiked club that was painted up like the little Punch and Judy doll with a jester hat, where each of the little jingle things was actually a spike and a grappling hook kind of thing. And he would go around beaning people with his puppet, my puppet, my puppet, bonk.
I just imagine this like the John Cleese character from Quest for the Holy Grail on top of the Raptors.
Well, yeah, that's it's this exact same kind of annoying accent, but yeah, it's like everywhere. Just anybody he killed, you jingle, 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 whomp, my puppet,
my puppet. What? Oh, my puppet, my puppet. Right.
Yeah.
Bob the Assassin. Bob the Assassin in the Night Below game had a very early career definitive moment, which was fantastic. They were all traveling together. They had pack mules laden with treasure. They were on their way home, and a random encounter of a group of ogres, 6 ogres.
Oh shit!
They were all level 1, 2 in that range at this point, and so but they had 6 ogres. Yeah, it was very, very bad. Actually, the dwarf fighter was level 4. So and he's like, "Come on, we can take him. We can take him." And so everybody's, let's fight him. They had 2 rangers at the time, the dwarf cleric. Nobody knew Bob was an assassin. Like the players did, but the characters did not. And so they're all like, we fight the ogres. They send the dwarf in. Only 2 large creatures can attack a single small creature in a round. So the dwarf was doing pretty well. And then while everybody's back was turned, Bob led one of the laden mules away during the fight, figuring they were all going to get flattened by the ogres. So that was very funny, and of course they ended up beating the ogres, and cost 2 PCs because Bob wasn't helping. But they of course caught up with Bob, and he's like, "I was just leading it to safety. I wouldn't want the ogre to get our treasure." and they're like, "Well, some of them were like, that is reasonable. One of us might have conceivably done that." And the Ken side of the group was like, "Listen, you snake, if I ever see you again, you're done."
I mean, like my fighter and Aaron's
ran away during the fight, and I wanted to make sure it didn't get away.
Like in my fighter Hadrian, an escaped slave, who, if he had been in that party, like this is Aaron's OSC game, like from like last year or the year before, I don't remember. But if he had been in that party, he would be the first to run away, but also be the first to stab anyone in the back who fucking ran. Like if you had retreated without him, he'd be like, "You little fucking snake."
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being a bit of a hypocrite.
The dude was completely chaotic. He was completely chaotic, and he had like a 6 charisma. And like literally, I did this when we were fighting a bone golem, and only one of us had a magic item, and none of us could hurt this thing. I was the first to run. I was like, Hadrian is like, he just bolts. He just bolts down the door and just leaves them to their fate. Because we were like trapped in a wizard's tower. We were trapped in a wizard's tower with no way out, and we just said, "Okay, well, we got to run." And literally, no joke, I literally thought to myself, "Okay, we brought no food. After we did survive, we brought no food. We're stuck up here, and there's a dead body." I'm like, "Okay, how?" Like Hadrian is just gonna go, "How many of my friends can I kill before I starve to death?"
It's a good question to ask. To Geek's question, Bob the Assassin's attempt to make off with the treasure was what actually prompted the formation of the second D&D group, which became the Night Below group. So it did have campaign altering consequences. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask this much because we've all talked about Thieves. What did you all think about the thief having the unlimited levels for whatever race you were going to be?
That to me was good for what was built into AD&D. to basically give every race an option to play something without, losing out on the class.
I would have capped them. I don't as a house rule. I leave it as is, but I would think you still want a high cap. I like the low caps for some of the other classes in AD&D. Like the elf only going to level 5.
Like what high cap are we talking? What kind of high cap are we talking? 14,
I'm talking
20?
Yeah, mid-teens with the ability to increase for adjustments. But all the others, I like the low caps because they really make you consider.
Most of the level caps are sort of around 7, 8, and 9. Rarely come into play anyway.
Yeah, unless they're really low ones, like a halfling's 4 or an elf 5 for fighter.
But still, a halfling fighter thief is
deadly.
It's a great character to play, even with the limited fighting ability. And having that unlimited thief makes it a worthwhile option because the thief class
and halflings
moves up through levels quite quickly. And with the extra hit points from a fighter and for a while, the better attack rolls and all of that.
Here's the other question: I don't know if you do it, but I use the monster manual ability, so the halflings get the +3 to slings and arrows as well.
Oh, I don't.
Do they not? Do they? I thought they did that bug standard in AD&D. Because
they do it in Osric.
+1.
They do it in Osric, but
okay,
but
all right.
No, I do apply that because that's part of the perks. The low level cap comes with massive perks. Halflings get that beautiful stealth like the elves. They will get that +3 to strike with missile fire. So they are starting essentially at 4th level of ability, but they're capping out at 7th level of ability.
You know what? Halflings, I used to feel that way, and I was like, oh, I'm going to take this, but when you start realizing, when you use the different methods and things, I said, no, that's for NPCs because player characters get enough other options for fighters and things like that to get them in. I that's my view on that. So
I get that. I just found that for me it was like because I'm hardcore keeping the low level caps. I'm going to give them extra perks, and I use the movement rates as well from the monster manual. So halflings move at 9.
Like I mean, I can only speak from like swords and wizardry. It's like my preferred D&D, like as close to like a retro clone of my choice. But I think like that the dwarf and the halfling especially get gimped hard, man. Like I mean, well, in terms of like the leveling department, because like a dwarf can only be a thief if they're a fighter thief. And a halfling can't multi-class at all, so they only have 2 options: fighter.
So that's specifically to swords and wizardry. That's not the case in AD&D.
Well, no,
I know, but
if we're going to go by core of what's allowed, you can be a dwarf, a thief, or for a dwarf can be a thief, assassin, or fighter, and that's it.
Or a fighter thief.
Yeah. Like because that's what I was thinking. Like of letting if the dwarf has high enough wisdom and they find a dwarf who is this class, I might let them be fighter clerics, and I might.
Unearthed Arcana allowed that.
But this is for swords. It's just I only would allow that because in swords and wizardry it says you could, and I'm just debating it. I'm still like, maybe not.
Yeah, that's the one thing from UA I didn't add in. I didn't add in the multi-classing options. So the only multi-class clerics can be half orcs or half elves, and that becomes something special. Like half elf can be a fighter cleric mage, which is a surprisingly potent combination.
I mean, you're right. When you get fighter magic user thief, or later on the fighter magic user cleric, but sometimes I really felt that worked better for small groups in retrospect. Whereas when you get these large groups, it's better to specialize because you move up much faster. I mean, the dwarves really did not have too much. So it's interesting that they. But that said, is dwarves get so many. Yeah, I didn't appreciate it when I was younger, but they get so many bonuses to their saving throws.
Their thief skills and their thief skills as well.
The armor class bonus against large creatures.
That is nuts, man. The dwarves are really, really good. They're really good.
It's not spelled out, but I was just saying before with the encounter of the ogres, only 2 large-sized creatures can attack a small-sized creature in a round. So a single heavily armored dwarf going into a pack of ogres while the rest stay back and use crossbow fire or missile fire, you will annihilate a pack of ogres.
Oh well.
I mean,
is when you start really adding into. If you really want to get some stuff, is heavily armored, which is plate and a shield, and then he has a decent. If he has a decent dexterity, which I always, as a kid, I don't know why, but I kept subtracting 1 from dexterity, and then later on I read it. Oh, it's 1 from charisma. Their dexterity is just capped at 17, but I was like, oh. That doesn't make him nearly as bad as I thought. I'm willing to take that charisma hit.
A mildly dexterous dwarf is a dangerous thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, just like seriously, yeah. Like I mean, it makes sense why in the fiction dwarves are the orc and the ogre and the troll slayers because they're just badasses. They're great.
Well, they're also just cantankerous and don't like anybody.
Well, and then spellcasters, if you have to go up against a spellcaster, they get the bonuses to hit. The poison. I mean, that's really where, if you're really looking, it's like, okay, I want a halfling thief or a dwarf thief because they get that really high bonus against poison.
I have never DM'd a game in which a player has played a dwarven thief or a fighter thief. They've never picked that option.
I get them all the time. There's one currently in my team good.
Well, it's one of those things that when we look at now, it's just like I know that Sean and I were talking at a different stream where we talked about how great the clerics were. Like the clerics were like the most powerful class. Like why didn't I always pick this as a kid?
Because people want to play the dogma, and they believe they're obliged to be the heal bot.
Oh, well, yeah.
When in reality they're the turn on dead bot. And the smash thing in the face with a mace bot.
Exactly.
And the high
they're
armor.
Great.
I think that's the real reason they did. Speaking of this, why they didn't give them the clerics. Like, oh, you know what? Is if I have a decent armor class and I can class this protection from evil and I can do this, I can get up to the point where they have to roll natural 20s to hit me.
The main reason I never played clerics is because, like so many other kids, I was sword obsessed.
And that's where you take the fighter cleric. They don't have the weapon restriction.
Well, yeah, and once I learned that, I would definitely
do they not
clerics, but I would
not in 1E. No,
I would usually start out as fighter.
Well, I was a big fighter because that's the character I wanted. Like, I want this, and in retrospect,
I've got that 18. I've got that 18, so I want to put that into strength for that 00, buddy.
My team good, the counterpoint to Night Below, they're unbelievably nasty. They've got 2 paladins, a ranger, a cleric, and a dwarven thief, right? And they use
that's a tough group.
That's a tough group because the cleric is now 6th level. He'll do a prayer on the group, and of course
nobody dies in that party.
Everybody, when the way they space out the paladins because of the aura, everybody's pretty much a -3 to their AC against anything evil.
Oh, right. I forgot paladins got that. Oh, God.
Oh, and they have a dwarf fighter, a straight-up dwarf fighter who does all the heavy lifting in combat.
So they have a dwarf thief, a dwarf fighter, a cleric, 2 paladins, and a ranger.
And a ranger, yeah.
They're set.
They're set.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, they may not have a wizard, or magic user, but
who cares, man? They've got they've got 4 tanks, the best kind of thief, and a healer. It's insane.
You should see them light up when they fight. They're like, this is like carving butter. We're so powerful.
Remember in D&D they don't have tanks because tanks weren't the ones that remember they're strikers as much as anything. When they're fighters in first edition.
When I say tanks, I mean they can take a lot of abuse, basically. They could take
Well, -2 from rolls for that, then +2 to saving throw for that as attacks. I mean that's
nuts. That's insane.
As we get older, we just get more cagey and like I did that actually when I was playing the cleric. I think we're playing 3rd level, and I said, well, you know what? I'll get Cure Light Wounds just to have it, just in case. But I'm going to take this protection from evil. And when we get into monster, like, you can't come to hit me, based off the OSE. It says they're not allowed unless you physically attack. So I just stood at the doorway, and everyone else was shooting over my shoulder, like, you can't get me, haha.
It's important to note the hedging ability of protection from evil. So it's like, oh, look, a pack of ghouls. Everybody huddle near the paladin. They can't get at this.
Yeah, just the paladin just blocks the door and they can't get by. Oh, it's great.
Oh, there's so many evil things he can do. Like, why didn't I think of this as a kid? All the time you're looking.
That's when the DM. That's when the DM starts getting really sadistic and is like, okay, I can't attack you, but I'll just get a polearm attack from the second rank and hit the guys behind you.
Well, except at the time, and this was the other part I didn't look. I haven't looked at the advanced, but I remember. I know we're not on clerics yet, but in OSE, I'm like, oh, every cleric gets either gets a flask of oil, holy water, and a sling, because you can always find sling
stay back. Yeah.
I am so gutted that in AD&D clerics don't have slings. Like that hurts. That hurts my soul.
Again, Unearthed Arcana changed that, but yeah.
No, staff slings, but not actual slings. I don't think.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many great things about this. But for the thief though, the other question, like you're talking about there, Sean, is what do you do when you get 5 thieves? Like, okay, we're all going to attack in the 4 different directions. So one person's like, oh, there's the thief.
Yeah, and every time he turns around, he's got another gun in his bag. On that topic, actually, since it is on topic, you were talking about the low thieving abilities. I think it was assumed that there would probably be 2 or 3 thieves, because I've had parties where they've had that. Like we had one with 2 thieves and a monk, and what I noticed was fun to watch was everybody taking their turn, guaranteed that somebody was going to get it. Somebody was going to find that trap or open that door. So that's interesting. Is the low numbers, I think, account for the standard AD&D group where you're going to have 8 to 10 characters.
Do monks have thief abilities?
Yes, monks have thief abilities.
Thought so. Yeah.
And when you look at it, and that's the other part is, they went in the same. A lot of times, I got the feeling they went in the same dungeon multiple times, because if you read the Dungeon Master's Guide, it says the level of the dungeon, not the level of the characters, the level of the dungeon determines the monsters that you're finding.
Yeah.
And so when you go over, you say, well, I couldn't pick this door. I guess the assumption was at some point either a different group would come in and pick the door, or as you went up in level, okay, now we'll go explore this other area. Which I know as kids, that was one of the big things of, whenever you went through the SSI and stuff, it's like, ooh, there's a door. Oh, I got a level. We can go explore this whole other section of the dungeon we haven't been able to before.
Yeah, and I'm a little rusty on my AD&D and stuff, but I mean, there's nothing saying you couldn't make multiple attempts at those and stuff too. So
it does say
it's certain once per like if you're picking locks or disarming traps, it does level, once per you have to
But there's nothing saying you can't bash the door in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You can just smash the
there's a lot
of
stuff that my group may have just hand waved because it seemed dumb.
Well, I do a little thing. Sorry, go on.
I wasn't strict on the once per level thing, but I approach it as if the circumstances change significantly, you can get another go. If you can give me a reason why the circumstances have changed significantly.
We always say extra time. So if you were sitting there constantly trying to pick this lock, you are also risking more wandering monster checks,
right?
And and so it was dangerous.
A lockpick check is D4 rounds. I can't remember if that's official or if that's my house rule, but I always have to roll a D4.
Hello, please. The burglar you're looking for is Mr. Omenal.
No, I've actually heard someone had told me that you can easily break into most quote master locks with a bobby pin.
I don't know about
I've maybe not a bobby pin, but it's like a paperclip or something. They're on YouTube. There's a guy called Locksmith or something like that who, I was told about this where he broke into master level locks with a paperclip.
Great. So you're telling me a master of the craft has the skill to pick a lock?
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
You and I cannot do that, TK.
Well,
he is.
I've missed it as much as it's a fun hobby to do.
Played with it when I was a kid,
But yeah, that's one of the things is I did one time, and sometimes I could pop this thing in within 10 seconds, and sometimes it took me half an hour. What? And I gave it to my son, and he's just like, "Oh, sure, okay, click." All right, thanks, son.
Squirrel Hermit actually points out. He said, if you don't have an intelligence or a wisdom bonus. He says once per level. That's
his house rule.
That's his house rule.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's his house rule. Yeah. But that's an interesting way to handle it, actually.
And this master lock is really easy to pick. I mean, this one just is. When they say that locks are intended to keep honest people honest, that is true.
Mm-hmm.
Dishonest
No,
person,
it's not even it keeps honest people honest. It's more like it just keeps out the lazy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
or those who don't want to get in trouble.
If
like,
somebody really wants into your house, I mean, a
break a
sawzall will
brick.
take care of any.
I mean, a brick, yeah, a brick through your window. Yeah,
Modern
there are ways to
cordless
get around.
tools make a lot of things really easy and quick.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't care for noise, I mean, a shotgun will do it.
Yeah, but no. So I sit in my neighborhood all the time, and there's plenty of noise around me. I don't investigate every noise because
I mean, if you hear
I would never sit down.
If you hear a shotgun get discharged, I think that would probably perk your ear just a little bit.
Where I live,
yeah, but I'm not investigating that.
I mean, you'd call the cops.
Yeah,
there
but
was
he's
an
not
amount of
investigating.
gunfire on New Year's in my neighborhood that would induce PTSD flashbacks in vets. It was just crazy.
That bad, huh?
Well, the first time I ever went to Los Angeles, that area, and I'm used to going, and I've lived around military bases almost my entire life, and I'm used to hearing lots of gunfire. But that was the time I went. That's not at a gun range.
Well, yeah, I was sitting here on New Year's,
too.
and it was nuts. I'm like, wait, is that fireworks? I'm like, no, fireworks are not that rhythmic, and they don't stop at a magazine capacity.
Yeah.
So New Year's Eve by you is a perfect time for a burglar to go a burgling then.
Well, what's funny is
or
because I'm new to the area, it caused me to go Googling things, right? And like I'm in St. Louis, and there are actually newspaper articles from Kansas City saying, please do not engage in celebratory gunfire on New Year's. Physics is a thing.
Yeah. Well,
the bullets will right.
I was in Afghanistan after Ramadan, so I guess it was Eid. Anyway, the final celebration. I'm just seeing tracers go up in the air left and right, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's normal." And, oh, okay, that could be bad.
But back to Thieves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Back to Thieves, please. Yeah.
Back to Thieves. Okay.
Back to everyone having lock picks.
I think this is my last topic on my sheet, and it's the classic historical and mythological inspiration for the thief class. For example, was Robin Hood a thief?
Class
good arguments.
I would say he's a fighter thief.
Well, if you really go with
it depends.
The extended lore, he's like a noble fighter. He's a nobleman fighter.
Yeah, because it's so hard to pin it down because so much has been added to him. It's really hard to get a canonical, like the
he's
canon
a thief in that
of
he
Robin.
steals stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't peg him as a thief.
Like Conan's
class.
a thief, really.
What about Dick Turpin?
Yeah.
Anything
not a
if
thief.
you can beat somebody up and take their stuff.
I would. Yeah.
I mean, looking at some of these, I would consider Robin Hood a ranger because they really seem to have that.
Yeah.
Because they focused more on the light armor being out there. I mean, we all talk about Aragorn, but of course, the other part is Robin Hood.
Yeah,
with the
Robin
bow
Hood
and
is
arrow.
a ranger who convinced the DM that he could have a person as his animal companion and named him Little John.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I would.
I just rescued my animal companion.
Not a person.
Even just look at the fact that the most iconic weapon of Robin Hood is the bow. Like, so I don't even think he would classify as a ranger because he doesn't fight those kind of, unless you consider the English to be like a type of giant class creature.
Well, no, it was the fact that he moves through the woods and things like that, and you can track. So that's why I was looking at Robin Hood, but yeah, he was
a woodsman. He was a woodsman, regardless.
That's why I was looking, and we're all looking. Well, he didn't cast spells. Like, yeah, but ninth level is awfully high for D&D.
I imagine you look at a lot of the spells rangers can cast are really just ways to excuse fancy woodland tricks.
Abilities, yeah.
Robin Hood exists in a world where magic didn't exist.
What's that?
Dick Turpin. What about Dick Turpin?
I don't know who that is.
You never heard of Dick Turpin?
Nope.
Famous British highwayman.
Well, I don't know too much about British criminal history,
stalks
dude.
the highways of the 18th century, I believe.
Well, I can tell you another one from the...
Your money or your life is...
Oh, yeah, that's brought him in oblivion. But here's another one from history. Jack the Ripper.
He was an assassin.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's an assassin.
In D&D, you build him with an assassin
An
character.
assassin. Yep.
Yes.
Exactly.
I'm trying to think of the... I mean, when we start looking at all these things...
Billy the Kid.
Well,
Indiana Jones.
He's
Indiana
a
Jones is
fighter.
a thief class.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Indiana Jones, yes.
They got read languages. That was part of the reason that they got read languages by my... Well, to be fair, that was actually pre-Indiana Jones. Because Indiana Jones didn't come out until 80-something.
It was the 80s. It was like 84?
No, 81. I saw it in German.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I almost wonder if the read languages might be some extension of the Conan-y stuff, because he's always like interpreting the strange bits that he finds.
I think it's just because of scrolls. I think it's just because the Grey Mouser can read scrolls. I think that's the only reason.
Yeah,
that's probably true. That's where a lot of that came from.
Yeah,
probably from that.
I think Grey Mouser is probably 90% of the thief's existence.
Yeah, no, like the Grey Mouser is the thief. Like there might be other examples, but if you most of the abilities that the thief has is what the Grey Mouser does. And I firmly think that although Conan does climb the tower with a thief, I think the reason why the barbarian gets climb as a thief is because of Fafhrd, because he also knows the Grey Mouser, because he's also a barbarian. So,
Conan he gets that because Conan is always. I mean, the barbarian class gets climb stuff because Conan was always climbing crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but so was Fafhrd.
You've got to remember the timing of the Barbarian class being official in AD&D and the Conan the Barbarian movies coming out.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. That's fair.
And you look at the rest of the parts of the Barbarian, too. It's the wilderness, ruggedness, the superstition against magic, because Conan really did not...
Oh, yeah.
Everybody in his world didn't trust magic, but...
I mean, I don't think Fafhrd trusted it either.
Class.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wilderness, the wilderness skills, the ruggedness that come with the barbarian too, you know. So,
but
and the ability to fight well without armor.
I don't know. I don't think that's a later invention. I don't think that was in the original. Is it
first ed? Yeah.
So Dragon Magazine, which is what we're quoting. What was it? 60. It was 60 something. They had the barbarian. I can't remember exactly which one.
Also in Unearthed Arcana, which is where that was pulled from. He has those abilities.
Right.
Well, and they pulled the Cavalier exactly from. They just lifted the Cavalier out of that and put it into Unearthed Arcana as well. So.
What Blaine says here is, I wasn't aware that I don't know much about OD&D that maps needed magic to read.
Okay,
I vaguely recall that. Something I've never used, so it's not even on my brain. But
I mean, that's probably why. The magic users like in AD&D got read magic for that reason. It's probably just like, the hangover from the OD&D days.
Read magic was there to learn new spells, to decipher spells, and that sort of thing. Yeah.
There were several things I wish that they had just given that as a class ability. Read magic, detect magic, and identify it to me should have all been
at least read magic. I mean, I've said it before. I mean, at bare minimum, why is a wizard having to have a spell to read magic? Didn't he have to read magic to learn this shit in the first place?
well, and it was a spell that they get automatically. I went, why does it have to be a spell? But I agree with you. We're not on magic users now. I'm trying to think of what other things for thief is. Looking back on it as a character class compared to the others, is there anything that you feel that was left out or was missing from this character class?
I think thieves probably could have used some sort of guile skill beyond their charisma, because thieves are often, if we're looking at thieves as a whole, and like all the things that thieves in literature do or in media do that were lumped into the thief class, thieves are also fast talkers and tricksters and stuff.
They can be, but that's not an absolute.
But not.
Plus, I don't like
sneaky.
I don't want charisma based skills in my games. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to disagree with this on.
I was answering Omen's question.
I mean, I think that the thief is an excellent class when you start looking at in first edition they had plenty to do. They had plenty of skills outside of combat.
Mm-hmm.
They were good in I mean, listen to Sean now. They had a lot of stuff that they could do in combat. So to go into a dungeon without a thief is kind of a death sentence in certain cases. Whereas you can go in without a fighter because you can get a cleric and some other stuff. But I think that was one of those things when we're starting to look at this was what are they really missing? And you're like Elfbait said, what do you really need as a thief? You don't need a high intelligence because it doesn't really alter your skills. You need a high dexterity. And then basically whatever other stat you want to have is fine.
That's why I said, go ahead.
To Elfbait's, addition to the thieves, on that note, I do agree that a high charisma is great for a thief. And I mean, a question comes up actually a fair amount. I have to guide players through this: is why would you ever take a human thief? Because the non-human thieves are unlimited and they get all those abilities. The human thief, and this isn't laid out in the class, but the human thief has the ability of being human. Humans are neutral in terms of reaction adjustments for all creatures. So they don't provoke an inherent racial penalty, and that can be so massive that it's unbelievable.
And here's the other side of that: the languages in AD&D. The fact that I think the whole intelligence modifier or like known languages is for humans only.
Pretty much.
Because non-humans get a set number of languages that they come with, and they can only get more languages if they have a really high intellect. But they're fixed in what languages they get, whereas humans are versatile; they can take other languages.
Any languages.
The implied setting also makes humans just basically ubiquitous. So if you're talking about like just blending in, that
dwarf. I saw a dwarf stealing this priceless ruby. And there's only about 500 dwarves in a city of 10,000.
Playing elves as originally kind of depicted in the older editions, they're not really the most friendly to other races. They're
you really have to play up the racial tropes, and with a thief, you have that advantage of a charismatic thief. Human thief is not going to have racial penalties, and that adds up. Even our cleric in Night Below has he does all the talking, even though he's neutral on terms of charisma, because the elves with the high charisma incur penalties against certain other creatures.
Against non-elves.
I was going to say, DK, you were saying about charisma skills, whatever. Have you seen Major's Musings channel? Seen the recaps of this?
I do watch some of his things from time to time, and I do want to get on that. Mates, I need to get on that more, but
he uses the charisma effect all the time.
It's not even really an optional rule. It's just one that everybody ignores and forgets. The reaction checks.
And you really do your game a disservice if you're not using charisma heavily.
If you want a good example of a thief with high charisma in media, look at Philippe the Mouse from Ladyhawke. Matthew Broderick's character, he's kind of a nothing, but he's all charisma.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that, we can argue about editions. I think that's one of the things that's unfortunately missing from 5th edition.
Yes, absolutely.
It's having a lot of that just built in. As you start making, we don't want to do this, we're going to allow this. I said, but a lot of those things really did make okay, I'm glad we have the elf so we can talk to the elves, and we have the dwarf so we can talk to the dwarves, and the elf will just hide because we have orcs nearby.
I have to admit, watching Mage's Musings channel is what made me rethink the reaction thing. I fell into the school, my group fell into the school way back in the day of that should be up to the DM and the player should role play that, right? We should role play that, and you should be thinking of the character of the monsters. But
you should be, yes, but leave the reaction to the dice and justify the die rolls. Yeah.
The more I watch your channel, the more I realize how much of the fun of being a DM I was robbing myself of by getting too much into the story-based DMing. That we were doing well before even the Hickman Revolution, whatever you want to call it, just because that's how our brains work. So we were, and I've already said we played with a very fast and loose version of AD&D anyways. But yeah, like watching his channel, I'm like, why am I not doing that? That increases my fun as a DM, not knowing how everything's going to
turn out. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's why like, every time, like when I'm doing my line and dragging thing, like every time my players say something pertinent, every time I roll reaction. Every time when they're greeting, I roll to see their disposition, and then when they say something that I feel is like
using charisma skills. That is.
Yeah, but when I say charisma skills, I mean player facing charisma skills.
Persuasion.
I don't like
intimidation.
Yeah, I do not want them to be able to dictate to me how player like NPCs will behave towards them. I don't like that.
That's not how those skills work, though. They've never.
Yeah,
worked.
but it's how they that's how they always inevitably work. I don't want to have can I make a persuasion check? I don't. I like saying I will make the reaction when I feel is appropriate. When it's a DM facing mechanic, I don't feel obligated to have to give the players the chance to do this, because if they pump the points into the skill, they're going to want to use the skill. Whereas if I take that skill away from them, they'll never have to worry about it. I'm like, okay, well, they don't have the option. So
my solution.
I think you might be reading too much into it, because I mean, it's easy enough. It's like, okay, you want
to the games of 5e, like although as bad as they were, would tell you otherwise. And it has colored my experience. And I know. I'm not saying mine is any way definitive. I'm just saying the way that the 5e group I played has colored my experience, and I just don't want to deal with it.
I'm gonna bring up
your stories about your group.
It's super easy to deal with, dude. It's just like, I want to persuade him to do this. Okay, roll the dice. I rolled such and such. Sorry, the DC of that was way more than you rolled, because you're trying to have them do something they absolutely would never do. Also, in the DMG of 5th edition, social encounters are not just one and done. You set, much like the reaction rolls from the older edition, you set a baseline, and then it modifies up and down from that, and can take several rolls to actually get to a final result. And may never actually get to the result they want, depending on the actual on what's being asked.
I'm going to say something here, because we're talking about this, and I think that we all did this as kids. Either we had to self-teach ourselves, for the most part, that's what went on, or we got taught by someone else who and there's this mentoring, that you go from players to from DMs to players as you start going through. And I think that was one of the things that bothered me, not just about this, is that Cypher system being a good example. It's not, is too many times does it feel like, even despite what the book says, not everyone reads the book as it should be read. Like I know Elfbait and I joke about the Dungeon Master's Guide. Or the 5e Dungeon Master's Guide is actually really good if you read it.
Good, yeah.
Most of that book needs to be in the freaking player's handbook, in the section called Dungeon Mastering. So it feels like it's in the actual rules.
But I think that's the problem that comes into it. It's just like this first edition. As we're starting to go through it, I think that we're all beginning to understand, and as we talk amongst each other, because we all have, going through and, listening to Sean talk, I went, oh, okay, I can appreciate that. Or Ye Old Geek, when he was talking about, I just let them roll the stats. And I went, oh God, I used to, if I didn't get good stats, I'm like, I'm tossing it, and I would roll for like an hour just to get stats I would like. I mean, it's okay, you want to sit there and just watch me while everyone else is doing it. Here I go.
And again, with D&D, with AD&D, if you understand the average, like high stats aren't really needed. They're needed for qualify for a class, and it's nice to have the bonus here and there, but most characters
don't need them.
fall into the average.
I played in Geeks.
I rolled these.
Yeah, I remember.
In Geeks game, I played a ranger with +0 in everything. I just barely qualified, and I was still competent enough to do my job.
A baseline ranger with no bonuses is a beast. Like, the bonuses are just garnished, but
see, for me, and this is the big problem that you get into it, is you start getting the glass cannon when they get the super high strength. I would much rather them slowly build up higher strength. If they said, you know what, you start at
get
lower
those
stats.
gauntlets, man.
Well, no, I mean 12 or 13. Then guess what? Every level you can add 1 to your stats. I would rather do that than have them have those high stats at the beginning. Just for the fact that the +3, +6 is a huge benefit when you're low level. And when you're high level, it's not as big of a deal. And that's what I'm referring to.
It does help you get to those high levels.
Yeah, well it does, but you know,
you got to live
really helps
long
you get
enough.
to the high levels is playing smart and learning when to run away. That matters much more than how great your stats are.
High stats, I've noticed, tend to make players overconfident, and
yes,
they're more likely to die. Whereas the average character is going to play more cautious. He's going to play it like a real person. It's like, oh my god, that guy's got a knife. Okay, let's talk this through.
My fighter Hadrian in Aaron's game had a 12 strength and a 17 dexterity because we did 3d6 down the line. And he was a coward. He never took any risks. It's the same with my cleric. He had like +1 in his constitution and wisdom. Tried to avoid combat as much as possible. You know, like, but they were, you know, there is truth to what you're saying, Mage. Like, players get way overzealous when they think they can kill everything because they have high stats, and then they start getting hit over and over and over again.
Well, even in OSE, you know, one of the things I wanted to make sure was, I got a thief. I have to make sure his second highest stat from dexterity is Constitution, and then it's like his third. Well, what I want, Charisma, because intelligence really doesn't add anything to a thief, nor does wisdom in many cases. But
when you always see, do you allow them to assign stats, or do you do them straight down the line as the book suggests?
I was a player. As a player, he let us use the 46 method.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And the first thing I did was, and I got really high stats in my first rolls. And as I've been getting older, the first thing I do to a DM is I said, hey, I roll this. Are these acceptable? If not, I will roll stats that are lower. You know, because you don't, when you start having, I think the average for that character was like a 14, and he had a 16, a 17, and a 15. And I went, these are awfully high. Here, you verify these first, that it's okay. Because I have been, perfect example was, and I was playing a bard in 2nd edition under Dark Sun, where the average stat was 5d4, and whatever methods you want to go from there. I was playing that, and I had to let my character have lower stats, and everyone else had 17s through 20s, and mine, I think my highest was 15. And I just sat around twiddling my thumbs because everyone else did everything much better than I did. So I do think that there is this thing of, it's one thing if they have one high stat, but when you don't want characters to be, there's such a disparity between power levels between characters. One was just sitting around. But that OSE game that we played, I sat there, and it was actually pretty interesting on just seeing how much teamwork matters in getting things done. Like, here you go over here.
I think that's one thing that's been lost in newer editions is, and I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in this. It's like the adversity that we had in the older editions is what everybody remembers. Like when your party, how many of your favorite D&D stories are about when things went wrong or things were hard?
You scraped through,
or things. And you know, most of my favorite stories are even about character death, you know, like somebody else in the party dying, you know, and very few of them are like, yeah, I remember that time when we stormed the castle and we killed the big bad guy. And it's like, no, you don't really remember that, but you do remember that part where you were like lost in the wilderness for, 2 weeks. And, you finally found the temple starving, and then you had to go through the adventure with the entire party down a point of constitution because,
I remember one of the funniest moments I ever played.
Not in a bad way. Yeah.
One of my favorite moments was with that cleric I mentioned, was when he had a half plate and we're in this wizard's temple, and a magic statue asked us to relinquish all our stuff. And I like this plate. It was a holy plate from my god. I was like, I don't want to give this up because you're just going to destroy it. You can take my +1 mace and take everything, but you're not taking my plate. I love this. And it also helped the fact that it was a +1 plate that cast light that did damage. It was great. I loved it. And I would have been very upset if it got taken. I literally spent 5 minutes like, fine. I literally went last just to forestall. I didn't want to give it up because it was it was my precious.
Well, the other part is exactly what Elfbay is talking about. And this is where I lose it for 5e. I'm like, well, it's just not getting the feel that I want. was when the magic user pulled out the dagger to fight, there was a sheer sense of desperation. You knew
Fireballed.
Like, you know, it's but you knew when that magic user pulled out that dagger, and you're just like, we are so screwed. He's out of spells. You know, everyone's going down left and right, and the magic user has to get in melee combat. We're done.
Weird, yeah. You're when the wizard, when the piddly D4 wizard is engaging in combat, you know you're fucked. You know, I'm out of sleep. I'm out of web. I'm out of light. I'm out of magic missile. Okay.
Well, it's not. It's not that. It's because you always protected the magic user. Okay, the magic user is either going to be in the middle or in the back. And now you're at the point of the magic users in combat are complete, you know, are defensive
cohesion.
line.
The column has fallen. Yeah.
Back to thieves at low levels. You should protect the thief as well. To be honest,
absolutely.
Yeah. As we've learned that their skills were vital for basic dungeoneering.
That is why you always stick the cleric at the back or behind the fighter to keep the thief and the magic user alive.
Well, I'm going to use this opportunity, just a quick opportunity now. We're back up to 24 in chat. So those of you who are here with channels, I want you to have a go at shilling them. And we're going to start with Elfbait because you have resurrected your channel over the last few days.
It's only raised dead. It's only raised dead. I haven't resurrected it yet. But yes, I had an impromptu stream that people responded to positively. And so I've decided that I'm going to try to bring it back again. The channel is Elfbait, so it should be easy to find. Yeah. I am the channel.
I had meant to subscribe the other day, and since you're giving it a go,
yeah. I mean, I'm right now. I'm in the outlining phase. Like, what am I? How do I go forward? You know, because the impromptu stream is great. Maybe I'll do another stream, but this time plan it. And I did get StreamYard set up so I can have guests.
Well, that's good.
Nice.
I mean, I came in there and you said, no, you keep buying games. I'm like, stop enabling me. You pusher. I'm sorry.
Buy all the games and never play them.
All the games. I've been shelving all my stuff recently, and I'm like, I thought one shelf was going to be enough. I was wrong. I
enjoy Helas, man. Thanks for the recommendation. I really enjoy reading it.
There you go. Hellas is a great universe, and I love the fact that they just took the map of the Peloponnese, and
it's so cool.
And turned it.
It's a shame that it's Evil Hat and the D20 system, but like,
I don't think it was originally Evil Hat.
No, in 2008, it references it in the back in the version I have. It might not have originally, but the one I have, it did.
A long time ago. I bought it from the guys who wrote it at a convention and sat down and had them do a demo game. Anyways, on to the next shill.
Yes.
Go on then.
I've overstayed my time on the floor.
Who's next? Me?
Go on, Sean. Yes.
Yes, well, I mean, a lot of people here I think already know who I am, but I do game recaps. I talk a little theorycraft and some random silliness. There's my channel tagline. I'm on a little bit of a break until this weekend. I've got a big card tournament unrelated to D&D that I've been focusing my attention on, and so taking a little break on the channel. But I'm going to start my quote-unquote season 2, probably starting at the end of the month. Start getting videos back. I left off on a cliffhanger. The Demi-Lich was coming for the wizard to eat his soul.
So wait a minute, Sean.
Wait. How can a Demi-Lich eat something that wizards don't have?
Wait. Hold on, Sean.
Yep.
Is it poker or baccarat or something?
No, nothing like that. It's an old collectible game from the 90s that went defunct like 20 years ago. But there's a bunch of us in a small community and hangers on. I don't know if you've ever heard of Overpower.
No, I'm not familiar with that. No. Card games are not my thing. I'm just not. I saw Magic the Gathering. In retrospect, if I just bought in, I would be a rich man. But I was like, I don't like this game.
Yeah, I was never
in '95.
Never into Magic.
Yeah,
I am. I play Magic. It's great.
I was a competitive bridge player for a while.
Nice. But Omenal, do you have a channel to show?
No. I just come on and help everyone else. Part of it is that the times that I would be really available to do it would be one thing, but I like talking to my son, and I really to get a channel going. To be fair on this, is you have to be consistent, and you have to do everything. And I'm like, I don't want that consistency. I kind of like the freedom.
Well, to answer your question, Dave, I have a channel for personal use. I don't put anything out yet. I might do it in a year or two, but it's like I wouldn't do it for money. I just do it the way Geek does, just to talk about stuff I want to do.
Yeah,
but I don't have a channel.
I just money.
I know, but I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it as like a career. I would just do it as like, hey, I'm reviewing this, or here's something here. Yeah. Well, no, you got gypped 5 pence by those greedy people at YouTube. Undeserved, sirs and madams. You give that 5 pence back to that pure Brit, the pure-hearted Brit. He needs every pence for all that money, all that drink he's gonna buy.
Wait a minute, and let's not forget, he has now gotten on their radar for being a miscreant.
Yeah.
Undesirable for saying you need to manually review this, and then they're just like, no, it's uphill.
And then I sent a snarky response back. Explaining that their English language.
Big Brother is watching you, Geek. Big Brother is watching you.
You blackguard, you.
I am going to also mention we have got some people in chat who've got channels. Hungar has a channel. A Squirrel Hermit has a channel. I've seen Connell, Cigar DM. He has a channel. Colsaf's been in tonight as well. He's got a channel. And so, yes, go and support everybody in chat as well as the people who give their time up for the stream. So, go and do it.
Just understand that Hungar is now out of the hospital, and so give him.
Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. Yep.
Well, wait a minute. He's out of the hospital. The question is I think that we should all have a pool of when he's going back in. And how many days?
Stop him. That is fucked, Omanel. God damn it, dude. Hungar, do not listen to him. You're going to live to be 300. Don't listen to Omanel. Out of spite, you have to outlive him now. Out of spite.
He laughed. He laughed at that. I mean, that's how you can tell.
Yeah, he laughed because he's not allowed to cry at it. You hurt his feelings. I'll say you're sorry.
I'll say this much.
You don't get to make that demand. Only Hungar does.
Well, actually, yeah. You're getting offended for Hungar. What kind of person would not give him agency? What kind of person are you? No, actually, with Hungar is the great thing about Hungar is such that it's the best personality out there. No matter what goes on, he's like, "No, man, we're gonna do this." You know what it reminds me of is the guy from Kelly's Heroes.
Oddball.
Well, it doesn't matter. He's just like, "Yeah, man, we're just gonna do this." The Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of the Lebowski. He reminds me of the great Lebowski.
Exactly. Oh,
for those who are joining in now to hear about Thieves, the first 2.5 hours of this stream, we hammered the Thieves and Assassins. We're just wobbling on now. This is the drifting
wind down.
This is the rambling stage. The last half hour of the rambling.
Yes.
The part where Saxons has usually gone to bed, so we can talk about what we want.
Yes.
We actually made it pretty far into the Thief before really going off onto these weird tangents here.
Actually, I have a little blurb on the Thief still.
Oh, good. Go for it.
So, interpreting the Thief in other settings.
Mm-hmm.
That where a thief is not necessarily like occupationally makes sense.
Stealing shit.
Like with the savage setting that I've been working, tinkering with for OSE. The thief works pretty much the same with only a few minor tweaks to the language of his abilities, but it just reframed him as the trickster. In a kind of a tribal savage setting. He's still a thief. He still does thiefy things, but you kind of have to come up with some filler for a world that is pre-literacy.
I'm doing the same thing for the apocalypse setting that I'm trying to justify what skills would a thief, quote unquote, have in a World War II, like a Fallout style apocalypse.
Well, so in modern sci-fi settings, thieves are generally framed as your technician, skill monkey, or your scout.
Yeah, so I'm kind of landing on.
Usually shifts that into a scout type role.
I'm kind of leaning towards that they're either a mixture of thief assassin or thief ranger. Although I kind of want the fighter to have more ranger abilities, but ho hum.
So actually, for Elfbait, and it's funny, as much as we spar, it's actually like the prehistoric thing he's doing. I'm all for him for doing that. I think that's fantastic. Have you thought about giving them again? I'm not saying so much ranger, but the ability to mimic animal, like mimicry, as a skill.
Honestly, I was trying to keep it as close to rules as written as possible. Okay. So when having players come in who maybe know OSE, I wasn't going to have to do there, but I did not do mimicry. No.
No. I was mentioning it because instead of pickpockets, like he's doing this pick pouches or pick loincloths.
So
I would just call it theft. That's what I would call it.
Yeah, I'm not renaming everything. I mean, obviously, it's not a total. I'm not publishing it, so I don't have to frame it out. It's just in my own mind and what I can put forward to the players. But yeah, I mean, that's a thing with Thieves. It's they get reskinned in other settings pretty frequently because in a science fiction setting, for example, where you're all a bunch of military folks, out under a command, you're not probably going to have the thief. You're going to have the scout or the survivalist or something like that. So for example, DK, for your setting, survivalist would work. As a replacement for the thief. I mean, ranger might obviously statistically work better, but the survivalist or the forager, picking locks to get into buildings, sneaking around quietly, hiding in shadows.
They still have they still have the hide in shadows, detect and remove traps. Picking locks,
for example, in the tribal one, I was taking some notes from a guy who already started that work, and then he then shifted over to making his own system. He's like, forget OSE, I'm just gonna make my own game. He turned picking locks, because there really are no locks in a primitive setting. I mean, there might be basic ones. Is just having an uncanny knowledge for complex interactions.
I would call it infiltration, where you could you could do a thing of I'm going to use infiltrate. How would you do it? I'm going to, rather than, because I don't know the code, I'm going to smash the keypad off and try and hotwire it.
I mean, for Elfbait, I was just thinking, and maybe that kind of falls into the old bard, was the ventriloquism skill.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Well, and I was thinking mimicry, because then you do birds and stuff like that, and
I did include a Beastmaster class in the game in the setting though, so I didn't want to step on his toes.
Sure. Okay. Well, you're right.
It's a good idea. It's definitely a good idea, and if I were looking at replacing more skills, it's something to consider.
I may end up robbing that, to be honest, for my sake, because knowing bird calls in an apocalypse could be the difference. Animal sounds could be the difference between life and death. So
if you're in the south, you just have to make sure that you can mimic cicadas.
Well, the other easy thing to do also is to just drop a skill and distribute the points to the other abilities, and just say that to make up mechanically for the usefulness of the class.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing, rather than a percentile anyway, I'm doing it D20 roll under. You have basically it's a thing where you get a set number on a D20 and you have to roll that number or lower. And as you gain levels, it goes up and up and up. That's kind of how I'm going to do it. Rather than doing it like the classic D20 of have a high number and you can pump points into that, I'm going to do it as a low number on a chart, because I just prefer it feels less arbitrary when you decide, roll a D20, add a number, and get high. It just seems too based on DM fiat.
Paranoia did.
Yeah. Whereas if I have it on a chart, I can say, well, definitively, you need this number to succeed, no matter what I may feel on it, kind of thing. So, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I like the whole idea, and he's doing exactly what I've wanted to do, except I would do it with a different system. But you're absolutely right. And then I was trying to think, well, how would you fit that in there? Because D&D, it's not that. As much as people complain about it, you can actually do a lot. What amazes me is, whether it's 5e or anything else, is how far people have taken this system, as clunky as it can be sometimes, and make it work and keep it fun. You know, that's what really gets me about that is.
I mean, if I wasn't actually trying to do this as a campaign that I wanted to play anytime soon, I would seriously consider another system.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that.
Oh no.
Yeah. The whole idea with it is I know you mentioned that with having players. I don't knock it at all. It's just sometimes you're going, okay, well, how hard is it to do? And the nice thing about OSE is you don't have to really work that hard. You just want to make it interesting. And since you roll a D20 or 3D6 or 4D6 or whatever you to succeed, to say, okay, just roll this. And that's one of the reasons I think that adding skills to D&D when they start getting this wilderness survival guide and things like that kind of hurt it. Is I really felt that allowing you to not put those skills in and just say, did you have this profession? Okay, this makes it easier for you. Okay, do you have this? Okay, and I think that gives a lot of flexibility.
With this idea since 3rd edition, and the farthest I've ever got on it is now when I decided to go ahead and shift all the way back to like one of the earliest systems, and I found that it was much easier to do because, and actually, oddly enough, race as class works really well for this because things are so pared back and kind of mythical, not in the mythological sense, but we're talking about paleo fantasy. It's not actual history of man.
It's prehistory. It's prehistory,
it's
basically.
Prehistoric fantasy, and things can be archetypical, and the races can be reskinned real easy. But race as class makes them stand out if you think about that primitive ancient context. Like, there's not a lot of time spent in that folkloric sense of trying to talk about, well, elves are going to have a lot of nuance between them because they're not all going to be magic usery or magic people. No, you have the forest people and the big hairy giants and the ancients, and they all kind of fit into a category, and that makes them really easy to play and also makes them stand out in a really spectacular way against the other human things like Beastmasters, and I'm using like the shaman in here as a rewrite of the OSE mage class, because that mixture of healer and limited caster really works for a world that is pre-magic or proto-magic. But yeah,
guys, I'm gonna head off.
Later, man.
Right?
That was a really long-winded bit to talk about just how reskinning and retheming Thieves for another setting. But yeah,
well, wait.
That was the point.
Cheers, Dick.
I want to say one thing though.
Night.
Get onto Ye Olde Geek's Discord, and you can go look at Elfbait as he's trying to work through this.
Yeah, I've been posting my design log.
Yeah, do it. I missed your spiel then because my internet connection has been playing up for the last. 10 minutes
well, you can go back and read it.
Wait a minute. Ye Olde Geek, can you put in your? I don't know if it's into your thing. Can you put into your Discord so people can join it?
I'll have to. As soon as the stream gets properly live afterwards and it's processed, I'll be able to do all that sort of thing. But
okay,
I'm a little bit disorganized this week, so I haven't done it on my most recent videos, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame. But if you look back at previous videos, people can find it if they need it. It's easy enough. Just click back to last week's or week before,
and you can watch Elfbait and I really spar, and then you can see when we come on here where we're kind of like, oh, how la la, kumbaya.
I have had some about designing things. I've had a few little ideas for my Dungeon 23 thing, which is still ongoing. I don't know how many other people are still keeping it going, but I don't know whether to spoil it and reveal it on here or not. But it's up to you guys if you want to hear about it. But had a few.
I'll go for it.
Yeah.
Want to listen.
No, it's getting late for you. It's the only thing that's.
We'll end the stream with the basis of the level 1 puzzle. It's remember it's a 12 days of Christmas thing, and they've got to reinvigorate the town pear tree by getting the enchanted water. In order to do that, to get the water flowing again, they've got to solve the elf on the shelf puzzle. So there's going to be 2 rooms with shelves in, and there's going to be little items on the shelves. And the idea is that they've got to find wooden orc, and there will be a two-pronged thing, and they're going to have to place the wooden orc on the two prongs and declare orc on a fork. and that's how they're going to solve the level. They have to find these 6 little things, place them on the relevant thing on the shelf, and declare what it is. And there we go. That effectively is how level 1's going to work. So there we go. That should all be ready in time for next Christmas. Maybe level 1 might be ready in time for next Christmas at the rate I'm going. But hey ho, I'm going to write it for AD&D.
Oh, okay. If you're asking about Elfbait, he's doing his for the OSC style.
I'll do mine for OSC if we get OSC's books available in Britain soon enough.
I think I know that Sean and I both got our books, yeah. And so it looks like, reading on his site, because he's from Ireland, isn't he? Gavin?
Norma, I don't know.
I think Gavin's in Ireland.
But now they're having trouble with the European distribution.
Oh, okay.
So things are delayed. So because they can't start selling them until the Kickstarter has been fulfilled.
Yes, that was but they said it's going to happen in early 2023, so it should be coming up probably in the next month or two. And you can either get the tomes, which are fine, but I like the individual books because if I have to have a bunch of players, I can hand them the individual books and then keep mine, and we don't have to fight over it.
I'll have to see what's available over here because obviously the physical books aren't yet available this side of the Atlantic.
Well, the biggest problem I've always had, the reason I'm still on PDF for those is just finding anybody who had them in stock at any given time for the ones I wanted. Also, it took me forever to figure out which combination of books. When there's an actual infographic that's been produced for your game system, it may be a little too complicated.
Yeah. First. I like the rules tomes. The rules tomes are the most concise. It's everything in 1 or 2 books.
Yeah, but those are kind of like more recent.
Yeah.
And nobody has them.
Well, and to be fair, the only reason I think because I was about ready to jump on when their first Kickstarter to get everything, and they sold out because I wanted the whole set, and they had look, a few of these. I went, oh. So as soon as the Kickstarter came out, I said, okay, I'll back the Kickstarter the entire way. And that's how I was able to get mine. But even then, that was what? Sean, when was that Kickstarter? It was like a year before.
February. Yeah, it was February.
That's pretty fast thinking about it because it came in, December?
December, yeah.
Yeah, December, November. That's pretty fast for a Kickstarter. I mean, he already had that stuff printed out and ready to go. Well, he didn't have it printed out. He was just waiting to get the money that he could pay the printer and then let it go from there.
His layout was all finished and everything.
Yeah.
He updated some art, but that was about it.
Yeah. So real minor.
We have come to the pumpkin hour anyway.
Womp womp.
And I think I've got 20 minutes left of my 20-hour allocation, which will enable me to start a stream on Friday night for the book reading nonsense that we do on a Friday. So
Geek Book Club.
Geek's Book Club. We're doing a Call of Cthulhu one at the moment.
You should brand it that.
Friday Night Book Club.
Friday Night Book Club. There you go.
Hey, I'm working on this, and then I've got which is horrible. I've got this one. I've got another one. I mean, we can also go through the history ones, but I'm also now working on the Elric series, which I've never read, as I'm trying to go through the appendix of the books, and I'll have to do the Mouser ones at some point with Lankmore.
I want to redo those in audiobook form because I remember reading them when I was a kid and I loved them. But well, we shall see. We shall see. Right, I'm going to end. Thank you very much, Slan. I'm going to say thank you to everybody who's been on stream tonight, starting from the top and moving around. Thank you, Elfbait. Thank you, Mage's Musings.
I am saluting.
And thank you, Omanal. And thank you to DK. He was in did the full 3 hours as well. So no Saxius this week. Saxius has been busy, but he's been in chat from time to time. We will be back for more Midweek Geek next week. I think we're going to be talking about, and it's quite a topical one next week. It will be electronic gaming tools. I think was the thing I had scheduled for next week. So that sort of popped up at a suitable time. In fact, it might even be a little bit late, but Then we'll go on to another class in 2 weeks' time, either magic users or clerics, whichever. We'll do this class dive once every fortnight until we've gone through the various options. But thank you all for taking part. Thank you, everybody who's been involved in chat. Good fun as always, and I'll see you on Friday. Cheers all.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.
Yeah, I definitely won't be